Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is a regular meeting of the Taos County Board of County Commissioners, August 20th. The time is 9:10. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Romero?
Present.
Commissioner Vihil?
Present.
Commissioner Brush?
Present.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Present.
Chair Romero?
Present. Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum. And we move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Commissioner McGill, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you. That takes us to the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, are there any changes? Staff, any changes? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Vihil.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Miguel Romero to approve. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vihil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. And that takes us to public comments on the agenda. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak for 3 minutes. And when you step up, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to speak on any topic. Will, go ahead.
Hello, thanks for letting me go first. It's not about what many of you are here to talk about, I think. My name is Will Drunko. I'm the Taos County Agricultural Extension Agent. I want to extend a cordial invitation to everyone in the room, all of our commissioners, all of our county staff, to the Taos County Fair, which is happening this weekend. We were there till 8:30 p.m. last night, sprucing up the pins and doing all that good stuff, and we'll probably be there till 8:30 tonight, getting everything ready. But we start taking in entries on Thursday. Most of the public-facing stuff is going to be on Saturday and Sunday. We've got a lot of great events planned. If anybody in our community, you're growing good squash, you're growing good, you produce the perfect hay bale, there is a hay bale category for you. It's your hay bale. I'm not kidding, it's all in our fair book. I did bring some fair books to share with the commissioners. Thank you. We do have some new events this year. We're going to be doing the Quilt of Valor presentation again this year. That was very popular last year. That's going to be on Saturday at noon. We got a joint proclamation from Taos and Taos County. We also have a new contest, the Goat and Sheep Dressing Contest, which is pretty fun. It's literally dressing up a sheep or goat, pretty fun one. We also, back by popular demand, brought back the pie eating contest. We've got our watermelon eating contest, a cakewalk, salsa contest, and for any of the hunters in the room, we have an elk and turkey calling contest. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. Again, it's this weekend from Thursday through Sunday. We're expecting a pretty good turnout every day of the fair. Want to thank the county for a lot of the maintenance work that's been going into the facilities. There's an active crew there right now, so we're getting everything in tip-top shape. And again, it's a great chance to kind of display what's produced in our county. County fairs, of course, have a long history in our country. They're a way to sort of exposition what's growing in a county, what's unique about that county. It's a way for people to come together. They have a lot of food vendors, music, all that good stuff. So really, I hope you can make time in your weekend to come out to the county fair. It's a very popular facility, very popular building. As we all know, I've been on the job now for 1 year, and I've probably hosted about 600 people there across various types of events. We sheared 80-something sheep back in August. We tested a bunch of bulls back in April, excuse me. So it's a multi-use facility. It is something that I look forward to working with the commission and the county on, and bringing back our agricultural facilities advisory board and working with you all about that to make it a more democratic kind of place where we all have a say in what gets done in the facility. So looking forward to that process after the fair, because this fair week is pretty intense. So thank you, everybody, and hope to see you at the fair.
Thank you, Will, and I agree with you. I got 170 bales out of a field this year. I've never had more than 120, so it is a good hay crop. Yeah.
Well, if they're really perfectly square, you can bring them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And everybody remember, come out to the county fair this weekend at Juan I. Gonzalez. Is that where?
202 Chamisa Road, Juan Gonzalez Agricultural Center. So right before the sagebrush, turn on Chamisa. It's kind of a funny thing. I always tell people our directions, but right before you get to the sagebrush, you turn on to Chamisa. But yeah, 202 Chamisa Road. There'll be lots of signs there on the Paseo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Will.
Hi, my name is Donna Carr, and I'm the program director for Taos Feline Friends. First full-time free spay neuter clinic for Taos County. We're located in El Prado. The clinic opened in May, and we are really excited to be able to provide these services for Taos County. All Taos County residents are eligible to bring in their pets for free spay neuter, and includes vaccines and microchips. We invite members of the Taos Pueblo and Picarillo Pueblo. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that's been providing animal services in Taos County for over 20 years. I was formerly board president and executive director of Stray Hearts until February of 22. I joined TFFF a year ago when the opportunity came up to open a new clinic. We are different from other Taos charities. The organization has no paid employees. Our management and administrative staff are all volunteers. Our 20-plus person volunteer team handles all the functions except professional veterinary services, which are provided by a 3-person vet team under contract to us. This keeps our overhead as low as possible, so all funds go directly towards animal care. Overpopulation of unfixed cats and dogs has created an ongoing crisis and a safety crisis in Taos County. People have a dog or cat show up and they feed them because they're compassionate, and in a year or two they have 10 or 20 animals. And people cannot afford a single spay neuter at a local vet clinic, much less 10 or 20 of them. And so we're really helping to bring this problem under control with a real root cause solution. We are dedicated to solving this problem at the El Prado Spay Neuter Clinic as our solution. The clinic is open Mondays through Thursdays every week, and we include vaccines and microchips. All services are free, and all Taos County residents are eligible. In previous years, various entities sponsored weekend mobile spay neuter clinics in Taos. They do 50 animals per visit, but these visits are too few and far between to have any major impact. In just over 3 months, we've completed over 800 surgeries. And they are already double the numbers from all the sponsors last year. And by year end, we will reach 2,000 cases. With your financial support, we can get this crisis resolved. A shelter can become sustainable, and we can make our community safer. We are seeking from you $85 per surgery for each non-town client. This is about half of what the VAN program costs and more than 70% lower than the commercial vet charges. This is a pay for performance. If we don't spay or neuter, we don't bill a penny. More details are in the public funding proposal that was circulated to the commissioners earlier this year. Please reach out to me if you have any questions and stop by our clinic to see it for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Leanne Mitchell. I've served as president of Taos Feline Friends since founding it in June of 2004. As Donna Carr said, our plan is to sustainably provide spay and neuter for all the cats and dogs of Taos County as a free service. Not only will this solve the current animal welfare crisis, it will prevent it from ever happening again. Let's talk animal welfare. No one wants puppies or kittens tossed into dumpsters like trash. No one wants dangerous packs of roving dogs, but it's happening right now. It's not ethical, it's not safe, it's not an image that anyone in Taos wants to project. Far too many litters are being born. I assure you, there will never be a functioning community shelter in Taos County until overbreeding and overpopulation is addressed. That's what our clinic will do, and as Donna said, we'll do it at half the cost of other alternatives. But let's talk human welfare too. Spay neuter is expensive if you have to buy it. The surgeries we've already provided would have cost over $250,000 at a Taos commercial clinic. Many residents here can't afford that. That makes people skip it. And when they skip it, there's a new litter born. That's where the real costs begin. At $1,000 per pet per year, which is below what Forbes magazine estimates, every litter of 5 costs $5,000 each year. This includes food, shots, boarding, training, vet visits, cat litter for cats, etc. Economically, it doesn't matter if the animals get good homes. That just passes the buck from one household to another. With our assistance, our clinic can reach 2,000 surgeries in 2024, and that will prevent an estimated 1,000 litters this year alone. That's 5,000 animals and $5 million in annual pet expenses. The $5 million mainly goes to the mega corporations that make or sell pet products, not to schools, not for healthcare, food, or housing, and not for reinvestment in the county, If the county, excluding the town, funds half of our 2,000 surgeries this year at $85 each, that's $85,000. The community can either spend $5 million each year caring for more cats and dogs, or $85,000 to support free spay and neuter services. That's the choice. The community can either completely be overrun with homeless animals that its shelter has not been able to support, or we can support free spay and neuter. That's the choice. The community can either continue to have animal control officers with nowhere to take strays, or it can support free and neuter services. That's the choice. Let's move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jim Riley. We moved here, my wife and I moved here a year ago to Ranchos. I've been involved with animal welfare for most of my life. I worked for the Humane Society of the United States in their national office in Washington, D.C., and in other places. I wanted to, and over time you will get to know me as a numbers guy. I worked on Wall Street for 35 years. So I've done an analysis of Taos Feral Feline Friend and their budget and compared it with what Stray Hearts used to deliver, which they don't deliver much anymore, as you know, and what the sheriff's clinics deliver periodically, which you have budgeted for again this year, and thank you for that. Those clinics are great, but they just barely scratched the surface of the issue, as you've heard. We have an exploding issue of strays here in the county. As you've already heard, spay and neuter, especially free and spay and neuter, is one of the most effective ways to address the core issues of animal welfare in any area. It's happened all around the world. When effective spay and neuter services are implemented, the problems start to abate, and obviously the population problem abates, but also other issues in terms of dangerous dogs and other negative effects of overpopulation of animals. The numbers that you're being presented from TFFF are half of what the sheriff has to pay for the episodic clinics that they have. It's $150 per animal on average, because they do 25 animals per day at a cost of $3,750. So what you're presented with here with TFFF is roughly half that cost. And the huge benefit of having a permanent brick and mortar installation where a county resident doesn't have to wait a month or 2 months, which might be too late for an animal in heat, and can get their dog or cat fixed and healthy right away. So I strongly encourage you to look at their proposal and to fund it as best as you can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jen Havens. I'm the founder and president of Taos Hound Underground and also a volunteer at TFFF a couple times a week. So what we've spent so far in 2024, this is from January 10th until August 1st, I believe, is approximately $11,000 on vet costs for 40 animals that have come through our rescue alone. There are other rescues who have spent more than we have. Many have spent less. The thing is that when we take an animal to TFFF, it actually helps the rescues because we are able to spend that $350 that we just saved on a spay, neuter, and microchip and vaccines on other needs, like a tooth removal that we have coming up, right? So other health needs are just as important as spay and neuter as far as public health and safety, like Giardia, roundworm, making sure that the puppies that we get don't have parvo. So without TFFF and them being able to provide free services for rescues like us, we can't do all the testing and we can't provide public health and safety help in that area. So roundworm giardia is like rampant in this place and parvo. So I don't know if you guys know about that, but when we adopt out an animal or have adoption events and people are touching puppies and they take them home right away and they're not tested, that can cause a problem for that household. Children, older people, you know, everybody, the whole family. So funding TFFF will help us. It will help public health and safety. Total this year, we've spent approximately $23,000 on animal care total, and half of that has been on vet costs. So we need your help by supporting TFFF so we can continue going there. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak for 3 minutes? Okay, if not, we'll move to next item 7, the minutes. And this is the approval of July 29th, 2024 Commission special meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the July 29th, 2024 special meeting minutes.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brush. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vehil. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. And we move to B, which is approval of the August 6th, 2024 regular commission meeting minutes.
And Mr. Chair, I move approval of the August 6th, 2024 regular commission meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Brush,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Mascareñas. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. And we now have item 8, public hearing A. This is discussion, consideration, and decision regarding the proposed ordinance 2024-4, an ordinance amending ordinance 2020-18-2, Taos County Land Use Regulations for the purpose of regulating short-term rental of dwelling units located within the county of Taos, providing for an annual short-term rental permit, prescribing the number of permits available, providing operating rules for short-term rental units, providing penalties for violation and enforcement, and requiring zoning clearance and registration of short-term rental units. Mr. Andy Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Today I am presenting ordinance 2024-4, the Taos County Short-Term Rental Ordinance. This ordinance incorporates feedback heard from the Board of Commissioners during work study sessions on 4 separate occasions over the course of the past 15 months: May 2023, October 2023, March 2024, and July 2024. The Taos County Planning Commission discussed ordinance 2024 during a special meeting on August 1st, and then continued that discussion to the special meeting on August 15th, before voting unanimously to recommend approval to the Taos County Board of Commissioners, along with the following recommendations. 1, the Planning Commission recommends greater clarity in section 4.19.3A10 and 4.19.3B11 regarding the requirement of owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied applicants to provide proof of availability and/or commitment from all public utilities. They wanted that clarity in order to provide language that does not implicitly exclude properties that employ off-grid utility systems. The Planning Commission recommends that all owner-occupied short-term rental units be exempt from the permit cap. Yesterday, I prepared a revision of the draft ordinance that incorporates the changes requested by the Planning Commission, and I submitted a copy of that draft to you all yesterday evening. Additionally, planning staff and County Manager Jaramillo held an informational meeting for the public on Monday, August 12th, 2024, in the County Commission chambers. This event was well attended as 59 individuals came out to ask questions, express concerns, and/or support of the draft ordinance. After staff discussion, one concern we felt we could potentially address within the draft ordinance involves changes geared toward accommodating legal non-conforming resort facilities These are developments that predate the land use regulations and were originally developed with vacation rental as part of the business model. In order to make this accommodation, I have drafted specific revisions that would allow short-term rental units to be registered in those developments without counting toward the permit cap. I provided that specific language in my staff report submitted on August 15th. So I realize that this proposed change, along with the proposed changes reflecting the recommendations of the Planning Commission, have not been subject of a larger discussion involving commission and staff, although I did speak with County Attorney Trujillo about those issues. But I will leave it up to your best judgment as to whether you wish to include those revisions as part of your potential approval today. If you do not feel comfortable considering those revisions as part of the draft ordinance today, I believe they could be part of a future amendment to this ordinance after there's been more time to discuss the content. On that point, I'd like to reiterate my comments from my staff report that this is a living, breathing document. If you should choose to approve this ordinance today, we can consider the previously mentioned revisions for amendment. And as we put the ordinance into action, we will review and assess its effectiveness and impact and make changes to better accomplish the stated goals of the commission for this ordinance. Now, if it pleases the commission, I have a few slides I'll put up on that are up on the screen here that just highlight some of the key components of the ordinance for those who aren't aware. So we'll get started with that. So here's a few important definitions. Short-term rental, we define that as a lease or license of any dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit, or bedroom for a term of 30 days or less. Owner-occupied means a dwelling unit that is the owner-operator's primary residence, or an accessory dwelling unit or bedroom that is located on the same legal lot or parcel of record as the owner-operator's primary residence. Non-owner occupied is a dwelling unit that is not the owner-operator's primary residence or is not an ADU located on the same legal lot or parcel of record as the owner-operator's primary residence. So permitting up to the cap, we are proposing a cap of 400 units. And, in the current draft, that's inclusive of both tiers. Of course, if you are to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to exempt the owner occupied from the cap, then that will change. But right now it's 400 permits. Once the cap is reached, no new permits will be issued until an existing permit expires or is revoked. Applications shall be accepted and added to a wait list. The current home occupation permits. So this is a reference to the current way we've been doing things in our land use regulations. Under the home occupation standards, we have allowed the permitting of short-term rental through section 4.8.1 of the land use regulations. So those existing home occupation permits, of which there are now somewhere in the neighborhood of 220 to 230 after the past week, those will be honored as long as those owner-operators maintain their Taos County business registration, and as long as they are able to adhere to the operating standards as proposed in the draft ordinance. Those permits and all the permits are non-transferable. In cases where property changes ownership, the permit expires. So here's some other just highlights from the ordinance. Only one short-term rental permit will be issued per owner-operator. Only one short-term rental permit will be issued per unique owner number. That's per property or lot or parcel. Short-term rental units are not allowed in structures that could not receive a building permit, such as recreational vehicles, tiny homes on axles, unpermitted yurts, tents, etc. Tiers and cap exemptions. So we have the two tiers. We have owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied. Owner-occupied is as it sounds. It's a short-term rental at the owner-operator's primary residence. This includes casitas, bedrooms. Non-owner-occupied, these are typically second homes or investment properties. This is estimated to be 80 to 90% of short-term rentals in Taos County. The existing home occupation permits that we are going to be honoring don't count toward the cap. We also have two exemptions in the draft ordinance right now. the affordable housing exemption and the long-term primary resident exemption, and a little more about those. So the affordable housing exemption, this would be in a situation where a owner has a property that they are able to rent out long-term to at an affordable rate as defined by our affordable housing ordinance. Okay, that's just weird. So, and if they're able to do that and provide that long-term rental, then that owner operator can have a short-term rental that does not count toward the cap. And they do not have to be on the same property. Ideally, I think an ideal circumstance to talk about is, maybe if someone has 2 casitas on their property, they have their caretaker or their property manager live for a reduced rate in one casita, and then they can do the short-term and rental in the other. But it really can be, you could have a unit in Cuesta that you're renting long-term and then have, a short-term rental somewhere else. So we really wanted to kind of leave that wide open so that more people could take advantage of it. The long-term residence exemption, so this would be owner-operators who can demonstrate both primary residence and ownership of the property for 10 years or longer. They would be able to have a short-term rental that does not count toward the cap. Now, if you choose to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to not count owner-occupied toward the cap, I believe it would make sense to remove this exemption, seeing as how all owner-occupied units would be exempt from the cap. So the timeline, if we get approval, if that happens today, there'll be a 60-day effective date. That'll start as soon as we record the ordinance at the county clerk's office. And then during that 60-day period, staff will begin working on the necessary application documents. We'll be creating letters to send out to all the property owners we can identify. We'll send it out, letting them know the application process. For the home occupation permit holders, we'll send out letters letting them know of their status and what they need to do to maintain that status. We'll be getting ready, preparing checklists, making sure that everything is as streamlined as possible once we begin taking applications, which will most likely be sometime in October. And that's all I have for you. So I stand for questions.
Commissioner Brush, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair Romero, and thank you, Andy. This, I know a lot of work and thought and research has gone into this, and I appreciate you standing up in front of us all talking about it. I just have a couple of questions for clarification. One is the affordable housing exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Is it basically that both caps that you're exempt from? So you're the total of 400, you're exempt from that, and also the cap of 1 per person?
Yes, yeah, and so I did include that in the language to where those affordable units could also be exempt from the 1 per person, 1 per parcel.
Okay.
Thinking about, and maybe if someone wanted to do a multifamily project and build 20 units, and they could do 10 of those as short-term and 10 as long-term affordable, to offset the cost of building and whatnot. So we wanted to make that an option if possible and get as many long-term units as we can.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So if I have, for example, 3 short-term rentals right now, and so I get 1,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also somewhere else in the county renting out to seniors, for example,
Mm-hmm.
at below our affordable housing, or at whatever our affordable housing level
Right.
is, then I'm good with my 3.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And right now it would be by, we would assess that through the affordable housing ordinance, which you have to rent to someone at 90% area median income or less in order to qualify for assistance from the county.
Got it. Thank you. My other question is about the last thing you talked about, which is the potential process of notifying folks. I mean, we have tried to start that process over the course of the meetings we've been having, especially last week. I've been thinking a lot about capacity lately. So when I see this, that you would start taking applications via this new system on or around late October, are we ready?
Well, the goal would be to use those 2 months to get ready. And so,
Okay.
if we started taking applications tomorrow, we wouldn't be ready. But, we need to work with, we've contracted with Granicus and Host Compliance to, they'll be working with us. They can send out those letters automatically. We just have to upload them into the system, which is a bonus. They can also, they'll help us with the identifying the addresses, which is useful. And they're also we're going to work with them to set up an online portal for registration and applications, and hopefully payment too, but we haven't worked out the details on that. But even if they, we accept their application and then have to call them to get payment or something like that, I think that's much better than having everybody have to submit a paper document in person or electronically, though we will still have those options available too.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that as we go forward, trying to kind of move the levers to adjust for our massive housing inequity in our community, that we're both taking care of our team and the public who's going to need to be interacting with us, who wants to participate in the right way. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Commissioner Beal.
Yes, so I would also like to echo thank you very much. I know you all have been working on this for quite some time, and I can recall when I first became a commissioner, the community, the outcry was, please do something. We have a problem here, and so here we are.
Right.
So my first question is, what happens if we don't approve this today? What do you anticipate seeing?
I think the concern, my concern that I expressed in my staff report, that we would be inundated with last minute applications under the current standards, has already come to fruition in the past week. And so, just since, I believe, between Friday and Monday, we received over 30 applications. And so we will honor those, but this ordinance automatically repeals the home occupation standards for short-term rental. So, if we delay it or if we don't approve it, then, we will be seeing an increase in those applications. And I think that'll, since those standards in the home occupation standards are really inadequate to the task of regulating short-term rentals, I think we'd see a lot of more disparity between what's permitted now and what gets permitted in the future once we do perhaps draft or pass an ordinance. And also it'd be a missed opportunity in terms of revenue collection, in terms of, the home occupation permit is $25. And that doesn't account for staff time, that doesn't account for enforcement. So we would lose out on that as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And next, the definition for owner occupied, which means that the person needs to live on the property in order to benefit from what owner occupied definition means. Okay, my only concern, this is a concern, I don't know that this is a concern currently, but I believe the intent when we said owner occupied is we wanted to make sure that the locals who are now able to or have been working on short-term, so they can make some extra money. A lot of folks need that. They're inheriting their family members' homes. That's very common. And so it takes them a little longer to really put money into making that what it needs to be in order to meet that requirement for short-term. So my concern is that it's owner occupied, and I know it's very common that families live on the same parcels. My father owned a piece of property, divided it between all the daughters, and so we all lived there. But at some point, our children can't live there because there's not enough property. So
Right.
they start moving around or trying to find a house. So my concern is in the future, if not already, if it's not already happening, is that if it's only owner occupied, that means you have to live on that site. And that might not be the case. And locals will not benefit. They will be, we're shooting them in the foot, right? Because they may have a house, maybe on the west side versus the east side of the road. And so that is a concern of mine. That because I know ultimately when we're looking at this, we're looking at what works for the locals first, right? And everything else falls into place. That's my thought. And so it's a concern.
It's a noted concern. I think it's something it's one of the many things we'll assess and look at as we go forward. In my interactions with the data, I haven't seen a lot of examples of that. They may be out there, but I haven't seen too many examples of that. That said, also one of the, sort of the justifications of the ordinance for, sort of giving a little more leeway to owner occupied is that, the assumption is that the owner is on the property and can mitigate any issues as they come up. Now, in a circumstance like you're talking about where the owner is next door on a different property, I think that's something we can look at as we go forward. And if we need to bring back an amendment, we can. I think it's important to also, remind everyone that we're in the very early stages of rewriting our land use regulations. So this amendment, which is an amendment to our land use regulations, will automatically be up for review within the next, year and a half. We'll be looking at these standards automatically. If there's something huge, if the data we got from Granicus is just way off, which I don't think it is, we can look at amendments prior to that. But obviously it will be amended as part of that overall process too. So some things we can deal with then, but like I said, bigger things we can deal with sooner.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair,
Rush.
if I might, and I see Commissioner Romero has a question too, but just to kind of follow up on the example that Commissioner Vigil just said, would the long-term residence exemption actually address that scenario?
The Commissioner Vigil's scenario, it would not address it. They need to be primary resident and demonstrate that they've owned the property for 10 years or more.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Commissioner Romero?
Good morning, Mandy. Thank you for all the work you've done, and I'm looking at it in a different way. A lot of people have asked questions about the short-term rental. I've talked to Brent, I've asked him questions, and he's answered them. But a lot of questions have come up now. Oh, here goes Taos County making another ordinance through the planning, because planning is slow as it is right now. Is it going to get slower as far as building permits, being that this is coming in? Do we have a staff for that?
So, well, as you know, the planning department has 4 separate divisions. We have planning, which is the planners, myself, Rudy, and Paulina, and Dolores. And then the building division is a separate division, and then there's rural addressing. So I don't think this is not going to affect building permits, right? This will be an all hands on deck situation where, Rudy and myself and Paulina and Dolores will all be handling applications as they come in October. I think it's a good time of the year for that. We're not seeing a lot of subdivision applications. We're not seeing a lot of special use permits coming through at that time of the year. So I think in terms of just timing, it's good. So I don't think it's going to have that much of an adverse effect on the rest of the department.
People come in to try and do this, and we've had our run-ins. Some of the elderly people can't do all this. Is there going to be somebody that can assist them with it, or they're just going to give them the paper and say, take care of it and come back? they come back, they say, no, you need this, come back.
No, we definitely don't want to piecemeal it out. We want to work with the individual and be really clear about everything they need. We're going to have checklists. If they want to come into the office and sit down with us and talk about everything that they need, we will do that. We'll have ourselves available to have those conversations. Mhm.
Commissioner Brush.
Thank you again, Chair Romero. Thinking about how this industry works, I can imagine that plenty of our current short-term rentals, whether they're already permitted or not, are booked for Christmas already.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? If this comes into play in October, and how does that work?
So the way I envision that working, and we probably need to have more formal conversations about it in the department, but we'll be accepting applications. We expect to be getting, a ton of applications right out of the gate. If people are submitting applications, if they're working on their applications, I don't envision that we will be actively going after them for lack of compliance. Now if there is a point where they're not, for whatever reason, like they are trying to rent out, a converted shed that didn't get a building permit, then we will actively put a stop order on those types of properties and make sure that they do what they need to do to come into compliance. But if they're working with us and everything seems legal, they have a good application put together, I don't see that it'll be too much of an issue. Now we get further down the road, we've got 400 permits, then we will probably start actively doing more enforcement.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Under the page headline, ordinance highlights tiers and cap exemptions. Then you have owner occupied, and below that, non-owner occupied. And at the bottom, it says estimated second home or investment properties estimated to be 80 to 90% of short-term rentals in Taos County. Does that include the town of Taos and other municipalities?
No, that's just that. I estimated that based on what we have through our current home occupation permits. And so that's the data just from that, and then kind of extrapolating that up to the full number of short-term rentals in the county.
Okay, so there could be other short-term rentals out there in the municipalities also.
Right, yeah, our area, unincorporated Taos County, accounts for just about slightly more than 50% of the total short-term rentals in Taos County. The rest are in the town of Taos, village of Cuesta, town of Red River, or the village of Taos Ski Valley.
Okay, and another question just for clarifications. And the cap of 400 does include both owner occupied, or does the final draft include both owner occupied and non-owner occupied?
So the draft that we, made available to the public on August 1st, that does include owner occupied and non-owner occupied, both counting up toward the cap. As I mentioned, the Planning Commission recommended that we exempt owner occupied from the cap. And so I did create a draft yesterday because their meeting was on Thursday. I was out at the office on Friday. I got a draft together yesterday that excludes that. And basically what I did was replaced the language of the long-term primary residence cap with exemption for owner occupied.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Bahia.
Yes, so I know we just approved the budget for the county, and I just wanted to mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we did put in 2 positions, correct? For the planning department for additional needs?
We put in 1 additional position, but that's on the building permit
On the
side.
building permit, okay, thank you for clarification.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Brush?
One last question, and this is not necessarily for Andy, it could be for our manager as well. in terms of, and I know the letters will go out to folks who already are operating short-term rental, but is there a plan for other kinds of communications more broadly to the public? I still don't understand why over the last number of years, some people knew they had to get permitted and some people didn't in the county. So I'm just wondering, and that could be a completely random result that I don't know what the reason, why that happened, but I'm just wondering, do we have a plan for, I know we've got the Taos News here, which is always awesome. Do we have a plan for, ads or other kinds of things just going out more broadly to let people know, like, hey, here's what's changed, and honestly, like, also why?
I think that will be part of the strategy, and so we'll need to sit down and develop a plan and know exactly what that entails, whether we're able to budget for ads. We'll definitely do a press release, maybe multiple press releases. There'll be the publication of the ordinance if it's approved. Not everybody reads the legals, I understand. It's not the most exciting reading. But yeah, we're going to work on putting together a plan so that we get the word out as best we can.
Thank you.
And may I ask one more question? So it's been on Facebook, right? Can you kind of mention some of the areas in which this has gone out? Because not everyone reads the paper. Jeff, I read the paper, but not everyone does. I think in my area, I know folks talk to each other a lot during SECA meetings, during community events. That's really where the conversation really happens. But can you kind of mention what has been done in regards to reaching out to folks?
So, we had a draft ordinance that was available last summer, and we got some feedback from that. That was just made available as part of the commission meeting that it was heard at in one of our work study sessions. We didn't really do a big push on that. But then, since we have finalized the draft and presented it in October, we put it on the website. We had the public information meeting last Monday. I've received dozens and dozens of calls and emails and tried to respond to each one of those as best as I could and provide as much information as I could. And so we will continue to do that. We also, mentioned it during our meetings on the comp plan that we had back in, I believe it was April, when we were discussing the comp plan. I spoke to the Taos County Association of Realtors. I believe it was last fall, and this was something that we talked about a lot during that meeting. I kind of did just an overview of zoning requirements and whatnot, but we really talked about the proposed ordinance a lot during that meeting. So there have been some outreach efforts, like Commissioner Brush said, capacity is always an issue.
And I'd like to make a comment. So as a representative for my district, I make it a point to, when I'm out and about, to tell folks, pay attention, short-term rentals coming up, pay attention. We're talking about whatever it may be, just so kind of heads up, so no one feels like they didn't know. So I know as representatives, that's part of our responsibility to make sure that folks within our district understand that something's going on.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. At this time, is there anyone from the public that would? Okay, go ahead with the list.
I'm not sure everyone signed that. It wasn't on the.
One more list here, everybody sign up.
Yeah.
This, folks.
And you do have, please state your name. You do have 3 minutes to speak on the topic, so please collect your thoughts.
Down.
No.
Yep, EAU.
EAU.
Yeah.
Just
No, it happens.
Brent.
Supposed to line up. No.
No, we're.
Do they need to be sworn in? Okay.
They don't need to be sworn.
Okay. Go ahead. State your name.
Yeah, the commissioner can ask questions.
Hi.
Commission isn't obligated to answer questions.
My name is Diane Dow.
from Talpa. I believe that we are in a recession, whether our government, federal government will acknowledge it or not. We have a housing crisis here in Taos for sure. We have 9.3% sales tax, which is the highest in the state. And the housing shortage, I believe, has a lot to do with short-term housing. I found myself a year and a half ago to be homeless. I was renting a place in Massachusetts. The owner decided to pay. I had nowhere to go. I couldn't afford to use it. I stayed with friends for 4 months. And then finally, I found a place in Tampa that renovated. And I had worked with him in order to, and I'm going to be studying him to finish the unit so I would have a place to live for $1,100 a month for 2 tiny little rooms and a bathroom. And it's a junkyard. If I was living in the city, they would call it a ghetto. It's a junkyard. He has 5 units there. He rents them out all for an exorbitant amount of money because he can get it. And I really feel that the short-term housing situation has created this, along with the fact that we don't have enough more affordable housing being built. But I believe that we should not even be looking at increasing this cap. Why would we want to increase it when we have such a crisis here? We have people here who are leaving the community who have lived here all their lives that can't afford to stay here. It's ridiculous. I think we have a code ordinance issue. I think we should be hiring more people to make sure that, according to what was stated, there's probably 800 units out there right now that are being rented out short term. Why? Because there's no code ordinance. I'll give you an example of something that has affected the entire community. Patrick from Southwest Sowenbach. He was here for years and years and years. His landlord, Larry Hines, died. He rented his commercial business space from him. He rented his home from him. His daughter inherited everything. She lives in Hawaii. She brought the rents way up. He couldn't afford to live here anymore, and he moved back to the Midwest. The entire community is suffering because we have to go to Santa Fe now. If we want to buy a vacuum or have one fixed, same with sewing machines. So I think my personal opinion is don't increase the cap. Why? What's the point? We already have a crisis. The town has 250 permits within a population of about 6,000. If you increase this cap.
Thank you for your comments. And we'll move to Melissa Lind. Melissa.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Melissa Lind. I was born in Alamosa and I've lived in Taos for 14 years now. I have an 8-year-old son. When I first moved to Taos, I worked as a waitress at the Stray Dog and my husband was a snowmaker at the Ski Valley. And despite our college education, we were on food stamps for 4 years because of the lack of working opportunities. My degree is in landscape architecture. We rented 5 different homes over 10 years before we could buy a home. And to make ends meet, I design websites, I do photography. My husband is a paramedic in the Ski Valley and in Espanola. And we own a short-term rental that has been permitted for 3 years. All of these jobs are required to pay the bills, and we still scramble. It is the Taos shuffle, and we are in it daily. Taos is a hard place to make a living, but I've always believed it is this same struggle that cultivates a creative culture here that has no comparison. We are, all of us, scrappy evergreens hanging onto the side of a mountain, and we love it. That's why we work so hard to live here. I closed on a property last week with 4 working-class co-owners. We have been lining up this purchase for 6 months for the purpose of creating a second STR. It takes 2 to 8 weeks to put together the paperwork necessary for the current STR permit. If this ordinance passes today, we will lose our property at a loss. We only learned about this ordinance a week ago. We agree the number of STRs should be limited, but why not allow locals to own more than one non-owner occupied STR? If national stats hold for Taos County, only about 5% of STRs are locally owned. Imagine if 50% were locally owned. Imagine if 95% were locally owned. This money would stay in the community. I have multiple friends who operate more than one STR in Taos. There is an ER nurse, a teacher, a graphic designer, an architect, a marketing specialist. We make incredible hosts, provide stellar experiences, and critically, provide living wages for cleaning and maintenance crews. This income is necessary for all these people to pay the bills. And I want that opportunity for other people who work hard in Taos. If we lose this property, I will have to let go of 3 women with children who help me maintain and clean. Consider all new permits being opened into residents only. I'd like to co-own and operate 4 as my retirement plan. If I could buy a hotel, I would. Self-employment in Taos doesn't offer a 401k. While I applaud your affordable housing exemption, that is not a working opportunity for people like us. This is for wealthy people or people with extra houses, and I do hope that they participate. Please consider delaying the vote on this ordinance and allowing more opportunity for locals, not less. This is a huge opportunity for you to open up living wages for Taos working people because we need it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melissa. Next is Kurt Edelbrook.
Good to see you again, and thank you very much for listening to us. My name is Kurt Edelbrock. I own and run Quail Ridge, and I really appreciate what Andy has worked with us on. First, I want to make it clear that I'm speaking just for myself on this matter, and for the many others who may lose their properties, either by being forced to sell or to lose it for lack of income, unable to depend on this income from the short-term rentals to pay the mortgage while they work hard and they may be out of town or whatever, but they're sharing the property with short-term rentals while creating a place they can come back to and live out much the rest of their life as such. I've heard this story more than a dozen times over the last month. Putting the burden on short-term rentals to fix the housing crisis that exists here in Taos and throughout much of this county will not work. May I recommend, plan, not ban. In your last county commissioners meeting, you banned a proposal for the community that would include workforce housing, low-income housing, and affordable housing. That project could have been the start of the county plan to include housing needs within the community. Taos County will continue to grow, we know that. Writing the county ordinance requiring future large developments to include housing needs seems to be more realistic than taking away property rights that is guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. I'm confused. There's a housing problem, or is there not a problem? Let's rather build than take. It's also my belief this ordinance may be setting the county up for many lawsuits, as I sent you one thing from Upper Las Colonias last month. And will hurt the communities in this county. I totally sympathize with the current housing problem in Taos County, but I do not believe this will solve it. It's quite possible it may reduce the number of visitors, since there'll be fewer places like short-term rentals for them to have kitchens and a place for the whole family to hang out on their time here. If that's the case, there'll be less need for any housing anyway, because there'll be less people coming. I don't have proof of this, but it's something to consider. I also acknowledge by the county format for the acquiring short-term rental permits has always been confusing at best. And many thought that in the confusion that all they needed to do is have a building permit. They may not fall under the 400 rental cap. I do thank this author. Andy's done a great job in ordinance in recognizing facilities that were designed specifically for short-term rentals like the resort. Lastly, the official notice was really tough to note this was happening. All today and last week's nice meetings, I get it, but it was tough to find it. And it is hard to go through the paperwork on the current code as it is. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Kurt. Linda Calhoun.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Linda Calhoun, and I'm the mayor of the town of Red River. Red River is just a little bit different. We are a completely tourist-based economy. We do not have the multi-generational families that is so in so many other places in the county. We also have very small parcels of land, and we're surrounded by the national forest. Our land is very, very limited. I did a study I reached out to the tourism department on the economic impact that this could have on the town of Red River. And the average visitor spends from $165 to over $400 a day based on the time of year. And of course, during the peak times, it's going to be much higher. So I just took that based on $250 a day for the average spend. And we have about 80 short-term rentals, I believe, in the Upper Valley, Bitter Creek, and Bobcat Pass. So I based it on 70 and an occupancy of 700, which is what those could sleep. So based on $250 a day and 600 people, that comes to a spend of $150,000 per day. $50,000 of that can go to lodging because a third of that is spent on the lodging and the other 2/3 is spent on retail, restaurant, entertainment, and recreation. So if our nightly rentals are rented an average of 150 days a year, which is pretty typical, that's an income impact of $15 million for the town of Red River if you limit our short-term rentals. That's just a very, very conservative estimate of what the town's dealing with. We also have concerns about the limits on weddings and events through the ordinance because we have many families that come up and rent multiple homes. They have weddings outside because it's so beautiful. They have family reunions. So that would also hurt our economy. I went through all the houses I could think of in the Upper Valley, and there's only maybe one that is rented out long-term. The rest of them are second homeowners. They come, they spend the entire summer. They come for winter to ski. So it's not really, it really doesn't work for our economy, how our people are using that. Red River's working on a short-term rental ordinance right now, and we've been working on it for probably about as long as you guys have, and it's very, very difficult, so I understand what you're going through. What we're very focused on is the safety of our tourists that they come in, so I support the fire inspections, the parking limitations, the occupancy limits. I think all that has to be in place. But I also understand the importance of collecting taxes. I know we have to have the taxes to keep our governments running. But I would, as a real estate person, it does lower real estate values. They are going to be reduced by about a third. And so I would just request that I oppose the ordinance as written, and I would request maybe you would consider excluding Red River from the cap. So thank you.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Mayor?
Can I, yes, Mayor?
Just come back.
First of all, thank you, Chair. And thank you for being here, Linda. Appreciate you coming in, and it's nice to see you.
Nice
a couple
to
of
see you.
questions. I couldn't write down all the numbers you were giving us, but the 80 that I think you made reference to, 80 short-term rental, that's outside of the municipality?
Yes.
Okay. And out of those 80 short-term rental, do you know how many are conforming or non-conforming?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Because I'm trying to figure out, a lot of these folks might be okay already.
Right. So if
we
they're
don't-
okay
so your numbers
already,
are not going to be accurate if you don't have accurate from the base, the numbers.
so if they're conforming already, then can they go forward with their permits, or they still have to start over, correct?
No, if they have a current home occupation permit, which is our current standard, then we're honoring those permits.
Okay.
And as long as they adhere to the operating standards and maintain their business license.
Okay. And I do have one of my property managers here. Kristen, do you know how many are conforming? Okay.
So
So
my
we need to
point
find
is,
it out.
and I'm sorry, Linda, my point is that those numbers are really hard to take when we don't have, if we don't know really who's, how many are conforming and how many are not. I get your concern, but I guess I'd have to ask, how many second homes, do you know what that number looks like in Red River, that they just come, they don't rent them out, they just use them as second?
I don't, and
I'm
I
just
would
curious,
need to,
Linda.
I would need to go in and look, because I'm guessing there's probably 400 to 500 homes in the Upper Valley.
Okay.
But we can get those numbers. I was made aware of this ordinance. It was being heard today, just a couple of days ago. So I didn't have time to get as many numbers as I wanted, but the economic impact is what is important to us. And if the numbers are limited, it will impact us.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Vahil. Move to Brian Chavez.
Hello.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to begin by thanking the commissioners for the work that you do to serve our community and the care that you have taken in writing this ordinance and this ordinance amendment to support affordable housing for our local residents. Being a Chavez, I was born and raised in Albuquerque, not here, but I have moved here a few years ago with my wife and my son because I want to raise my son here in Taos. We love Taos and we feel fortunate to make a living and contribute to the community. I am a regular volunteer at my son's school, Arroyos del Norte. I volunteer for Shared Table Food Pantry. I'm on the board of the local astronomy club and an 8U hockey coach. My wife is a professor at UNM Taos, and she is also a volunteer at Shared Table. We care deeply about this community because this is where our home. We have one short-term rental unit and one long-term Section 8 rental unit. And we love the fact that the tourists staying in our short-term rentals subsidize the rent for a local veteran staying in our Section 8. We applaud the commission for recognizing this kind of restriction in this amendment. We would like to urge the commission to go even further. As local county residents, the income earned by our short-term rental goes directly back into the local economy. This is in sharp contrast to the many short-term owners that live out of state and the out-of-state corporate owners of the hotels. The income we earn through our rentals is spent here. We understand that nationally, about 95% of short-term rentals are owned by people who live outside the local community, and Taos is likely no exception. We agree that it makes sense to limit non-local owners to a single short-term rental, but not all permit seekers should be treated the same. We are urging the commission to make an exception for local property owners like ourselves beyond owner-occupied dwellings. Allowing more than one short-term rental for our county residents is good for the local economy and ensures that the income generated by tourists stays in Taos County. Please allow local residents, well, I have here that we were asking for changes to 4.191D and E, but also possibly, I was thinking today, changing the definition of an owner occupied to include a permanent Taos County resident owner. Lastly, we saw this draft for the first time on Thursday, and I am grateful that my schedule allows me to be here to join this meeting today. We know many local residents, cleaners, property managers, whose livelihoods will be significantly affected by this decision. And many of these people are unable to attend today because they are working. The adoption of this amendment is critically important to the decision for our county. Please take more time to hear from local residents whose livelihoods depend on short-term rentals before voting for this amendment. We don't want to increase the number of people requiring, affordable housing by implementing this ordinance incorrectly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Amy Bobrick. Amy.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Amy Bobrick, and I live in Santa Fe. I'm here as the Secretary of the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association, which is a nonprofit 501c6 organization working to ensure fair, not overreaching regulations and promote hosting in a responsible manner and protecting personal property rights. Our organization sponsored the economic impact study on short-term rentals in New Mexico. The findings overview was quite incredible, and I do have these packets for you all as well. The direct visitor spending in New Mexico was $746 million. The total economic impact was $1.1 billion. Total jobs generated in the state, 14,555. State and local taxes generated, 109 million. Most government officials rank tourism as important to their local economics, and government officials can guess spending is highly important to their jurisdiction, second only to property values. Taos County is a big part of this. The platforms such as Airbnb, VRBO, automatically collect and pay lodgers tax and gross receipts taxes. We do not believe that the tax code for short-term rentals, owner-occupied or non-owner occupied, should be changed from residential to commercial. And I realize that that's not really in your ordinance this far, but it usually goes to that. The highest and best use is still residential. On a personal level, I have a short-term rental vacation home in the Taos Canyon, 2 miles past Shady Brook. It is permitted, and it's been permitted since I bought it 3 years ago. Before I bought it, I actually checked with the county to make sure that I was not going to purchase something that I couldn't rent out. It does not create affordable housing to have short-term vacation homes because people enjoy them and they want to use their own homes and they're not going to rent them out long-term. But I do appreciate what is in the ordinance, and I am a realtor in Santa Fe, and I do know the importance of fair housing and rent, and for people that need jobs in the county and work at the ski area and are in the restaurants. And we hire, cleaning people, we hire landscapers, we hire people to maintain the house. I'm restuccoing the house right now, and I rely on the money that I get to be able to improve my house. And I stay up here a lot, almost half the time. Thank you very much. And I'll leave these for you all.
Thank you, Ms.
You want to give them out?
Okay, Justin Gorham. Justin.
Good morning. I didn't actually come prepared to speak today, but it occurred to me that I don't know that if enough information was taken into account on this. And I think it probably has. I've known Andy for some years, and he's done a lot of research. Some things that I've seen in my area are most of the houses that were sold in my area were sold to people coming from out of state. Nothing is being provided for local housing. Half of my client base is in Taos County. The rest are in Taos Ski Valley. for short-term rentals. Those that are affected by this are looking at either leaving it empty or selling to somebody who'd probably leave it empty to use as a second home. So I'm seeing kind of mixed things on it. I'm not sure if that information has been taken into account on this as well, but I thought I'd mention it so that it could be considered for this. I think that it is something that will have a huge impact. We own a small company that relies on the tourism. I've been in tourism industry since I started working at 13. Restaurants, and mostly in the restaurant industry, lived in Red River, Cuesta, outside of Taos. There's been a lot in the tourism that is provided for my family. It's been the only way that my family's been able to survive in Taos without working multiple jobs, so, which has been surprising to us because most people I know work multiple jobs. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Next, Pamela Stein.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity to speak. I am a renter in a feeling in a trapped situation. I moved my casita at the beginning of November. I have lived in New Mexico for 30 years. I'm a massage therapist. I have served the tourists coming here. I've done more than 10,000 treatments. I represent, I believe, part of what makes New Mexico special. I am a deeply spiritual person. I've lived simply and I give. And people on my table have released their stress. They have such deep experiences. I'm an independent contractor. I pay high taxes and everything. On a massage therapist's income, I have been able to support myself in New Mexico and be able to travel a little or take a vacation. I am now in a position that my landlord needs my casita back. I've been told for 2 months now, and there is nothing out there. 25% of what's posted on Craigslist are scams. I cannot tell you what we have to go through. It's people are taking the opportunity to take their motorhome off Airbnb to charge $1,500. I need laundry. I need a bathtub. Am I asking too much? For $1,600, I can only get a studio and I have to compromise. I have a dog. I pay for an office. I have a business here in Taos. You're asking me to pay close to 50% of my income between taxes and rent, and I cannot find a place. So I need to press the need for some immediate choices because my dignity and my ability to put a roof over my head is at stake right now. And I came this close to what I thought was renting a place 2 weeks ago, and I spent a week negotiating with the person. Tiny, there's no closet. Flex, flex, flex. That's what I have to do at this point. But I showed her my financial income, my proof of work, all of this. She backs out at the last minute for whatever flaky reason. I don't know. But I can't tell you the stress this is causing me, the lost sleep this has caused me, the depression this has caused me. And I love my work. That's what keeps me going. I am a giving person who has lived simply and loves this land. This is my home. I have nowhere else to go. So something needs to happen. And I thank Andy, and it's just absurd to me that 80 to 90% of these rentals, I get the need for locals who have a second, but beyond that, your local people who give to the people here need a roof over our head that we can pay for. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Next is Christian. I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Christian?
Kristen?
She's not here.
She's not here? Okay, we'll move on to.
She's right here. She's coming.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, my name is Kristen Rickley, and I do work in property management there in Red River. I wasn't really expecting to speak today, but I think one thing that's really been on my mind listening to everyone today talk is we do have a hard time there in Red River, getting good help and getting people to stick around and, come to work each day. And I just think that putting a cap on rentals there in our area would deeply affect our employees there. They're already struggling in the economy that we're in, and I just feel like this would put a bigger burden there on their families. So, but I just wanted to say that I do oppose what's drafted right now. I just think it would just be really hard on those families there in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John Redhorse.
Yes, my name is John Redhorse. I live at 88 Comanche Road in El Prado. Mr. Commissioners, thank you so much for letting us all come up and I guess give you a piece of our mind. But one of the things that struck me about the ordinance is, and this is in particular to do with the cap, is that it was a little bit unclear to me what the rush was about that. We know that we have a county comprehensive plan in the works. Probably shortly in the next year or so, that thing will come out. And following that, y'all generally come up with a new set of land use regulations. Closely behind that, within a year or so. So now we're talking 2 years, 2.5 years. I would say overall, I think Andy's done a great job on this, coming up with something out of whole cloth. Gargantuan task, Herculean effort. But I think that what I see about this is I already know from talking to the people in the Quail Ridge condos where I live, and I represent them on the Upper Las Colonias Neighborhood Association board. Not speaking for them, for the board right now, but my understanding is that because they've operated as short-term rentals for 40 plus years, no one really goes and looks at each new land use regulation when they come out. And in this one, it's one sentence under residential zoning clearance permits. And this is where the home occupation sentence is. It's like, I think it's kind of non-obvious. So if they come down and get their business license reviewed to short-term rental their property and pay taxes appropriately and be able to account for those on their other taxes, the problem is that sometimes they're giving unclear information about whether or not they need such a permit. So we have no idea, actually, how many permits really would be needed once the more, I think, codified ordinance and rules, regulations come out for short-term rentals. So I guess what I'm saying is, why don't we wait until then to institute other things? That's great. But don't put the cap on until we get a better idea. Once these new rules go into play, you're already going to have natural limits. You're going to have one per owner, which I want to talk one more thing about. And then you're going to have, amongst the many other constraints in there, with accommodations that Andy's given and I had written into the ordinance. So I guess what I'm saying is, why not just wait on the hard limit, put a line in there as a placeholder like you do in certain ordinances that y'all approve, and then wait until then to see what an appropriate limit could do. And in concert with that, come up with other county policies for vacant properties that are vacant more than half the year, et cetera. Only one other quick point, please, if you don't mind. So one of the things about living in the Quail Ridge is, because it was conceived to be a companion for the ski and tennis ranch of Taos at that time in early 80s, late 70s, to be a short-term rental provider of lodging for those people at the resort. The problem is that each room in that condo complex is a separate property number. So by the definition that Andy has given to get a dwelling unit, and I apologize for going on a little bit long.
Wrap it up.
Okay, but But the problem is that we have a separate property. So we have 3 property numbers associated with one dwelling unit because we have 3-room condos, 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. And so all I would ask you to do is consider figuring out a way to make exceptions for places like that. There probably isn't another one in all of Taos County. But anyway, thank you very much for your time and for letting me go a little bit over.
Thank you. David Gooden? David?
Well, thanks. Oh, my name's Dave Gooden. I live in El Prado on Blueberry Hill. I built a house there 2 years ago this fall. And I also own a house in Albuquerque. And I wanted to own both those houses because I'd like to, my children, excuse me, to inherit each a house. I'd like them to leave them a house. The only way I can really do that is, and I want to live up here, is to, at certain times of the year, rent my house here out and then go down to Albuquerque. Especially since my ski pass, I had to get a cheaper ski pass this year because we had a 600% increase in the cost of my ski pass after the pandemic, you know. So I'd like to be able to do that and to keep both properties. And the only way I can do that is by renting them out. So unfortunately, in Los Ranchos in Albuquerque, where I own an old Adobe place, they've outlawed short-term rentals totally. And they said the only way you can do it is to become a bed and breakfast, on-site owner. Well, that's fine, except that will require a zoning change. So I'm kind of stuck there, and I just oppose this vehemently. We do have rental problems here in Taos, but putting it all on us is just not the way to go. Why don't you change the zoning, open up zoning, so I'm a builder. If I bought a property and instead of R1, I could put a fourplex on there and actually rent them out. So let's not do this for short term. Let's change the zoning and open it up so us developers and builders can do that. If you did that, I think that would be a much better way to go. Thank you.
I'm sorry, just a question. Have you read the ordinance?
You know, I just found out about this yesterday because it was on KNCE, had broadcasted.
So from everything you've just stated, you would qualify to have a short term. Just so there's nothing that would prohibit you from having one.
Okay, but that would be fine but you're capped now. I may not get in there on the cap.
But you might.
Well, might is not good. Might is not good.
But it would allow, just so you know.
If I could get in there.
Right.
Like, you're going to have a surge all at once here in October. And I will be there too, but still, what if there's 10,000 or 1,000?
Are you operating one now?
No.
That's it, that's the question.
Okay. You're welcome.
Oh, I thought he said he was renting.
Sir, can I ask you a question?
David, could you come back? Someone has a question.
Just some clarification. Did you not say you're renting the property here in Taos when you're not here?
Well, I can't because I only want it like my ski pass now. I had to get the cheaper ski pass. So
I wish I could ski, but go ahead.
I got blackout dates now up there, and I was going to rent the house during the blackout dates, and I can get a premium during those times, like during Christmas, I can get a real.
But you're not renting right now.
No,
I'm just trying to figure out whether you're conforming or not.
Well, I'm living in the house right now.
Okay.
At 436 Blueberry Hill. I built it myself, my own funds, and I'm a little short now, so not just in stature.
I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next is Tyler Yeah.
Say the last name.
Yeah, you can go ahead, say your last name.
Yeah, I can say it. My name's Tyler Cullenbrake. Thank you for having this meeting today. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak from the perspective of someone who doesn't own a rental property. I moved here 2 years ago to raise a family. I have a 15-month-old son right now. I'm not lucky enough to own a second home. I'm one of the lucky few in my age demographic who can even afford a house. So I'd like to speak on behalf of those people today. I think we've heard a lot of talk about the potential harms to local residents who own a short-term rental. I'd like to speak about the harms that are currently going on to local residents like myself who don't own a short-term rental. As Andy said, 90% of the STRs in the community are owned by people who don't even live here. That means that they are preying on our housing stock to create wealth for themselves, take it out of our county, and not allow for people like myself to buy first homes and create wealth for themselves the way generations of people before us have in this country. I also have seen a system where nobody's permitted. Like you said, there is 300 out of 800 rentals right now have permits. That leaves a giant hole in compliance in the county. That leaves a giant hole where people like myself have neighbors who have short-term rentals and I don't have a phone number for them if there's a problem. I was never even informed that there was going to be a short-term rental next to my house. I think that's something that the ordinance takes care of. I also think that it's properly carved out for the number of permits. The way Andy presented it last Monday was that there would be enough permits for those people seeking them. I think if you also exclude owner-operators from the cap, that solves a lot of the issues that people are bringing up today. Anecdotally, I'll let you know myself. My social circle basically consists of people with young children right now. We have a lot of play dates going on, and unfortunately, there's less and less of them in Taos County. In my experience, a lot of folks my age with a kid are moving in with their parents. They're leaving. They're moving out of state where prices are cheaper. They're moving to different counties where prices are cheaper. And I just think that this ordinance is common sense. It goes a lot. It doesn't go as far as a lot of other places that have very strict ordinances. I do think, like Andy has said, there should be enough permits to go around. And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, Tyler. Juliana Azon. Juliana.
Hi, good morning, Council. Thank you, Andy, for all of your hard work. Thank you, everyone who's been here to speak. I just wanted to present a counter argument against the exposing my ignorance to the land use rules and whatnot. The exclusion of yurts and single or axled tiny homes, creative dwellings. Taos is an artistic community. I feel like when people come here, they would be looking for an interesting place to stay. So I was just concerned that that would be a category that would be eliminated. I'm an artist myself, so I felt very strongly about that. It could be something that would also hurt locals, as you mentioned. That would be a structure that someone could maybe put up very affordably in extra space on their property. So I would like that one to be reconsidered for the artistic beauty of Taos and the creative vibe that's here. So thank you very much.
Right now. So we'll finish with that. Okay. Let's continue with Alexandra Goldman.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Alexandra Goldman. I work with the Taos Housing Partnership, and I'm here to voice our support for the regulation of short-term rentals in Taos County. And thanks to Andy and the Planning Department for their work on this ordinance. So our goal as an organization is to increase housing affordability in Taos for people to live here. And I don't need to tell you, I don't need to give you stats about the urgent affordability crisis that we're facing. One of the main ways we can address the affordability crisis is through increasing supply. So we've heard folks talk about how it's really hard to find a home here right now. That's one of the reasons why we support regulating short-term rentals, is that, you know, any short-term rental that is no longer a short-term rental can become a long-term rental. And that's increasing the overall supply of housing in Taos County. You can build more housing, and that is something that's really urgent and pressing that we do. However, building one unit of housing can take years, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas taking a short-term rental unit off of the short-term rental market is almost instantaneous and is free. And so that's an opportunity that we have to really increase the supply of housing here in Taos. Also, you know, a lot of the units that might be short-term rentals, they're already existing housing. Those might be less expensive long-term rentals than a brand new unit that has, you know, the latest whatever. That might be, you know, on market for something that's just out of reach for most folks living here. I've also heard people talk about the ways that tourists contribute to the economy, and I don't think any of us could possibly deny that tourism has a really positive impact on the economy here in Taos. But long-term residents do too. They're living here, they're paying taxes, they're going to businesses, they're volunteering in their community. It's really important that we don't forget that long-term residents contribute to Taos's economic well-being as well. And it's hard for them to contribute if they can't live here, or even harder to contribute if they're spending 50, 60% of their income on housing because there's just not enough supply. Another good thing that regulating short-term rentals does is it can take some of the incentive away from investors to just buy up big blocks of housing and push up the cost of housing. When investors do that, it's really out of line with the incomes that people have in Taos County. Maybe they're coming in from the outside, they have a lot of money, and so that can really raise the cost of housing for everybody overall. And so one of the great things that this ordinance does is it limits the ability for investors to come in and buy these big blocks of housing and speculate the cost of housing. I just wanted to speak quickly to the Planning Commission's proposal to exempt owner-occupied units from the cap. I just wonder if we might want to reconsider what the cap number would be, since the data was conceived thinking about owner and non-owner occupied. And I also want to point out that owner-occupied units can supply affordable housing as well. Like, she was living in a casita. And so those could potentially be short-term rentals and make it so locals couldn't live there. So anyways, we support this ordinance, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stuart, Stuart.
Hello, my name is Stuart O'Donoghue. So I'm a renter. My parents have had a business in town. My mom has a store in the plaza. She's been here for 35 years. I moved to Taos permanently 10 years ago. I am a renter. I can't afford to buy in Taos. I couldn't even afford back when it was cheap. So I live up on Blueberry Hill on a private drive. I have 2 short-term rentals on my driveway. One is a Texas couple who built a house there and built a casita next door. They rent the casita out year-round, and they live in the house like 4 months out of the year. The other one is right next to my house. It is my landlord's guest house. They've been renting it out on short-term rental. I'm assuming Airbnb for about 3 years after I moved in. So they've been renting it for about 7 years. And to say that it changed the vibe of where I live is a vast understatement. We have zoning laws for a reason, right? We don't put in Allseps in the middle of a residential neighborhood because it creates traffic, it creates noise. So what you're doing with allowing short-term rentals is you're letting hotels open up in residential neighborhoods. So I have a hotel room next to my house. And so what that means is people roll in at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, they slam their doors for 25 minutes while they're unloading their vehicle. They do it at 6 o'clock in the morning when they leave. I've been woken up hundreds of times. So I would like you guys to really take into account the impact that short-term rentals have on a neighborhood. They change the fabric of neighborhoods. It's insane to me that in 2024, we're just getting around to this in Taos. obviously we have a short-term rental crisis. I mean, we have a housing crisis. We have all these issues with affordable housing, but it's beyond that. You know, my landlord initially was very amenable to me having complaints about it. Oh, if you have issues, let me know. After about a year, he basically said, if you don't like it, find another place, because that's what happens when you make a lot of money. It becomes a priority. And so I think that they shouldn't be allowed at all in residential neighborhoods. If you want to have them in places where they don't disrupt locals and local neighborhoods, that's fine. But I just think that you should take that into account as well. And I appreciate the work you guys are doing on this ordinance, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stuart. Next is Lisa O'Brien.
Thank you. Lisa O'Brien, I'm the Executive Director of Taos Housing Partnership. I want to just say kudos to my colleague Alexandra, because I think she laid out some really beautiful points about this challenge. And every time I come up here, you hear me say housing is complex. And today, what I'm sitting with is really a lot more, I'm feeling a lot more of sort of the suffering that we have in this community around our lack of housing options. So I'm here to say that when we talk about increasing housing, it's not just affordable housing. We have to think about housing on every single level and continuum of that. And something as simple as a short-term rental ordinance, if that frees up 10, 20, 30 houses, that's 10, 20, 30 individuals maybe in this room who are not struggling with the things that I heard today that are extremely upsetting. I want to say that short-term rental ordinances are happening in every single community across this country, and they never look the same. So I'm also going to do kudos to the planning staff and to Andy, because I know that this has been sleeves rolled up, feet in the mud to try and figure this out. My understanding of this is really sort of like a compliance umbrella, because what I've heard in the last couple iterations is like we went from 1,000, well now we're down to 400 because we've created these other buckets. I'm kind of sitting here listening and going, oh, I think that story, I think that individual fits in this bucket. And I think that that's probably something we need to just really sort of get our minds around, is it's not around limiting so much as it is like putting people in different sort of lanes with that. I absolutely applaud that there's an affordable housing exemption. When Taos Housing Partnership came to be and all of us were in these conversations, it has to happen at every single level. There are so many levers that we have to sort of flip. And there's not one lever that we can just say, oh, go build affordable houses. We all know that. So we have to find these mechanisms to go a tweak here, a tweak there, and then how does it potentially open up that pipeline? So I just want to say, Taos Housing Partnership is in support of a short-term rental ordinance. Can we tweak it as we go? Yes, absolutely, because we all know you can't get to perfection. That should not be our goal. So I'm going to say yes to short-term rental. Let's keep the conversation going. And I'll just put my commitment from Taos Housing Partnership that we are in this together. We are part of the conversation. And if there's support that you need from us, we're there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And we go to Susie Benton. Susie?
Good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and thank you so much for your time. I've been a 30-year resident of Taos County. I've raised my family here, most of that time as a renter, and I got super lucky to be able to purchase my own home about 7 years ago. And that was after my kids were out of my home. So most of my time renting in Taos County was as a family with children, with young children. And it was tough then. I can't imagine how tough it is now, especially within the last 4 years, seeing all of our home prices just shoot up and watching what that's done to our community. As to this ordinance, I would just like to say that the hard work that the Planning Commission has done on this, the exemptions are well thought out, And most, if not all, current operators, from what it appears to me, would fall into one of those exemptions or underneath the cap, and they would be able to obtain a spot. And Taos County needs an ordinance, and I do think that this is the time to put one in place. I think it would protect our communities, and especially before we face the extreme problems that other destination communities are facing. Policies need to be written with the mindset of what kind of future we want to create, and this one is written that way. So I would urge the commission to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. And last person on the list is Paul Lohr.
Hello, my name is Paul. We have a house, a secondary house right outside the plaza, right next door to the fire station. We live in Austin, or we work in Austin. What we always say is that we live in New Mexico. Taos County is a very unique sort of scenario. And what I mean by that is, if you look at, say, Red River, you look at Taos, you look at the airships, those are like three different worlds. They're not even the same scenarios. And so to have a singular document covering those various worlds is really challenging. I fully agree that you have a problem in Taos, in the town, that needs to be managed. But I think putting a limit at a county level, when you've got Red River airships and other places like that, I don't think necessarily works. And so I think you would be better suited to focus on the town of Taos in this ordinance in terms of the cap. You know, in terms of requirements and things like that, I get it. You want to have a safe place. But in terms of a cap, it would be kind of hard. So like, let's say someone in Cuesta wanted to do a short-term rental, but the 400 or STRs are already done.
Can I just add a quick clarification, sir?
Sure.
We as the county commission don't have authority over those independent jurisdictions. So the town of Taos, the village of Cuesta, the town of Red River, within those town limits, we have no control. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but, all right. So then some of the unincorporated areas near them, yeah. And so, all right, but it's still kind of the same thing. You very much have a problem in Taos town, but I don't know that you necessarily have a problem outside of that. And so I wouldn't want to restrict what you need to do in town. I wouldn't want it to be restricted based upon everything outside the county. Anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did miss one on the list. Garrett Bender Kelson. There he is.
Good morning, Commissioners. Garrett Benacloss, and I live up in Taos Canyon. I have a rental. I don't have a permit because I was told by someone in my neighborhood association that only people within the city limits needed a permit. So I'm scrambling to get a permit, and I understand the importance of being compliant, and I certainly honor that. I went to the meeting last week, and there was a lot of confusion. I think I am one of those people that are confused, and it's a 20-page ordinance. I really appreciate the hard work that you all have done with this. I know it's not an easy process. I would just urge the county to have a public comment period, maybe a 30-day public comment period where renters can submit suggestions to maybe some of the clauses that are confusing to all of us. There was so much confusion, in fact, in last week's meeting that we weren't able to cover the entire ordinance during the meeting. And I would also suggest that there would be at least 2 meetings that are substantive, like 6-hour meetings where we can interact with Andy and other county officials to maybe make this a better ordinance. And I really, I sympathize with the fact that we have an affordable housing crisis. We need to fix that. I want to be part of that solution. I also sympathize with the people that live next to people that are renting houses that are not overseeing their properties directly, and that needs to be fixed, and that's not fair. I totally get that. But I would recommend that we slow down and have at least a 30-day written comment period so that we can make this ordinance as good as it can be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Garrett. And so at this point, close the public comment section of it. And I believe Commissioner Vahil has a question for Mr. Jones.
Yes, so I wanted to recognize the comment that was, or the comment that was, I'm sorry, the comment that was made around creativity. And, you know, we do understand, that's a reality. There is a lot of things happening in Taos. And I want to make sure that we consider that creativity. So can you speak to why that was not added in to the ordinance?
Yes, Commissioner, I can. So in Taos County, it's currently not legal to use a recreational vehicle for a residential dwelling. So, you know, that would apply to someone living there or someone using that for a rental. Yurts can be permitted. So this exclusion would be to unpermitted yurts. Come with, okay, some yurts can't come. This is losing battery. Yurts come with plans. They're easy to permit that way. Tiny homes can be permitted, but they have to be taken off the axle and put on either a foundation or anchored. In some cases, you can take the trailer frame and you take the axle off and you anchor that. Your trailer frame becomes the foundation in essence. So we're only limiting it, you know, to structures that can be permitted because that's the same rules we have for any residence in the county.
Great, thank you.
And something like, you know, I think there are a number of listings available that are private campgrounds. And so that would not apply as a short-term rental either, but those individuals could come in and apply for a short-term or for a special use permit.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions from commissioners for Mr. Jones? Okay. And at this point, we have before us a discussion, consideration, and decision regarding the proposed ordinance 2024-4 regarding Taos or short-term rentals, SRTs, short-term rentals. Any comments from the commissioners or Mr. Jones?
I guess I'll do some clarification. So there's several things that are before you. So we have the original draft, the original final draft that was issued on or made available on August 1st. There are also the provisions I prepared that reflect the Planning Commission's recommendations. And then there is the provision that I recommended in my staff report involving the resort facilities. So I think a motion would need to clarify, you know, which, if any of those kind of late provisions you want to include, if any.
Okay. What about the language that was mentioned, short or owner occupied and non-owner occupied versus residential and commercial? Is that a good possible change?
So do you mean in terms of the making it so that owner occupied would be exempt from the cap?
Oh, well, that too, but really just the language of residential instead of owner occupied and commercial instead of non-owner occupied.
Right, in terms of assessment, right? Is that what we're talking about? I'm sorry if I'm confused. Because I mean, if we're talking about making it commercial versus residential, that's an assessment issue, and that would be something dealt with at the assessor's office and not through this ordinance.
Yeah, well, commercial would be considered non-owner occupied. Is that,
And we would leave that, again, we'd leave that up to the assessor's office. Right now, this is kind of a hybrid zoning clearance.
so leave that alone.
I think so. Yeah, we don't have any language in there right now that deals with that. That could be something that we look at clarifying later.
If I may, being a former assessor, I have to jump in. Anyways, there is already some statutes, unless the statutes have changed, that indicate that anything beyond 30 days or a certain amount of time is already considered commercial.
Okay.
That in itself they're gonna see it like that.
Okay. Floor is open for motions.
So, Mr. Chair, could I just ask Andy to repeat the three? It's like the Andy and/or Mr. Trujillo.
So I'm sorry, what was it you want me to repeat?
Repeat the three. We've got three different
Yes.
versions here that are on the table.
Great.
So one more round through those. Thank you.
So if you choose to do so, I created language regarding, and this is in reflecting the Planning Commission's recommendations. So to take care of their recommendations, we would amend or revise, in this case, not amend, sections 4.19.3A10B and 4.19.3B11B, and they would be amended to reflect their desire to make it clear that we're not excluding off-grid systems. And so I did that with the following language. B, an Office of the State Engineer approved well permit will serve letter from the appropriate community water system or appropriate documentation for harvested rainwater, gray water, or black water from the New Mexico Construction Industries Division, and a liquid waste permit or discharge permit from the New Mexico Environment Department where applicable.
So can I just ask a question about that, Mr. Chair? And that is reflecting what a residence would already have to do to be compliant and have a building permit or anything like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then we would, in order to go further and deal with the, electrical, like solar only systems, on the 4.19.3A10C and 4.19.3B11C, we would revise that to will serve letters or proof of service from all other utility providers, including natural gas, propane, and electricity, residential solar permits applicable for off-grid systems.
Okay.
And I guess to go further, because there's more, there's more. And then so we would also, in reference to their recommendation to exclude owner-occupied permits from the cap, we would revise section 4.19.9B to say, owner-occupied short-term rental unit exemption. Owner-operators who can demonstrate primary residence can submit an application adherent to section 4.19.3 and obtain an owner-occupied short-term rental permit that does not count toward the short-term rental cap. And I can go into the recommendations for the resort facility language also. I have to get that from the original staff report. So this would add a definition for resort facility under the definitions, and that is any development in which the owners own two or more of the following facilities in common and have either obtained a special use permit or major development permit or are considered a legal non-conforming resort facility for operation of those facilities, swimming pools, spa facilities, golf courses, restaurants, or tennis facilities. And we would also revise section 4.19.8A4 to read as follows: short-term rentals as described in 4.19.8A will not count toward the short-term rental cap. And then additionally, 4.19.8A5 would be added to read as follows: With proper documentation as requested by the Taos County Planning Director, short-term rental units and legal non-conforming resort facilities can be considered short-term rental units as described in 4.19.8A. And that concludes the recommendations of both the Planning Commission and of staff.
Okay. Okay, any more questions on the recommendation from the Planning Department? If not, the floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of proposed ordinance 2022-4, amending ordinance 2018-2, Taos County Land Use Regulations for the purposes of regulating short-term rental of dwelling units located within the County of Taos, with Planning Commission recommendations affecting the water system and utility providers. So that would be sections 4.19.3A10B, 4.19.3B11B, and 4.19.3A10C and 4.19.3B11C. So again, reflecting the Planning Commission's comments around utility providers. And also with the addition of language and definitions around the resort facilities. That's my motion, if that is clear.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brush. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Vahil. Is there any further discussion, questions? If not, Madam Clerk, would you call for the roll, please?
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vahil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. Okay, the motion has passed. Thank you all for your comments, and thank you, Planning Department, for all your work. Mr. Jones and staff, thank you.
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to come back into. We have a motion by Commissioner Vehil, second by Commissioner Mascareñas to come back into session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vahil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. And next on the agenda, we have brief presentation regarding CPACE financing program, now available within the state of New Mexico. Jessica Stern.
Good morning, Chair Romero, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. I'm going to give a very brief, emphasis on the word brief, presentation about the CPACE financing program, which stands for the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And part of what I want to just offer in sort of level setting is that, again, high level overview. I am not an expert on this program, just trying to bring an introduction to you all about this program and why the county might be involved with it. Also that we as staff are currently learning about this and discussing it and whether this is something that we actually want to pursue, and that also there's been no action taken on this program. We are in information gathering stage. So what is CPACE? As mentioned, the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program is a financing structure that is enabled by state statute and local ordinance, that's where we come in, that provides eligible property owners with access to long-term fixed rate financing for a range of energy efficiency, renewable energy, water efficiency, and resiliency improvements. So the financing has to be specific to that work. The program allows local governments to secure financing with a capital provider via a special improvement assessment on the property. The Improvement Special Assessment Act was enacted in 2023 via House Bill 228, which authorized counties to impose, administer, and disperse special assessments to encourage the development of certain property improvements, again, also called CPACE. So county and municipal governments must pass an ordinance opting into this program in order for properties within a municipality to be eligible. So for us to take on this program or to opt in, we would create and pass an ordinance. There is a version of that that is available for us to look at should we decide that we want to move forward. Only county governments are required to pass an ordinance for properties that are not within a municipality. That also means that if an eligible property is located within an incorporated community, that municipality must also pass an accompanying resolution to the program for it to take place within that jurisdiction. So for example, if we pass our ordinance, but a property that is interested in taking advantage of this program is located within the town of Taos or the town of Red River, then those municipalities must also pass a resolution, not an ordinance. An eligible property means any privately owned commercial, agricultural, industrial, or multifamily real property of 5 or more dwelling units located within the boundaries of the region. And these properties can be owned by nonprofit organizations. The eligible improvements include decreased energy consumption through improved technologies on the property, support the production of renewable energy, decreased water consumption, or increased resilience against natural disaster. So there's a pretty wide range of improvements that can be made. How does it work? The county adopts an ordinance for the Improvement Special Assessment Program and what those boundaries are. That would be the unincorporated areas of Taos County. Interested developers and or capital providers apply to the state administrator, which is Adelante Consulting. They've been hired to administer this program on behalf of local governments and act as the intermediary between developers and capital providers and municipalities. Adelante Consulting vets and processes the application and conditionally approves or denies the application. Adelante Consulting would then work with the county to record the notice of special assessment interest and assignment with our assessor's office. I believe this is how this works. This is part of what we're learning. The county would then sign off on closing documents, and the capital provider would then disperse funds to the property owner and bills the property owner directly and collects those funds. So essentially, we are allowing the ability of a loan to happen, a private loan between the capital provider and the eligible property owner. Why is this program beneficial? So according to the documents and what I've gleaned so far, it's 100% long-term financing to complete efficiency projects, which are often difficult to finance. It's transferable upon sale. It can be passed along to tenants or lessees. It allows a function for building owners to make improvements to their building and therefore increases building stock value. It lowers energy costs and could potentially increase property values for upgraded buildings. Some questions that we have currently, it's still unclear as to the administrative needs for county staff, though we know that we can charge a fee to cover staff time for this. We haven't determined what that is yet. It's unclear as to the inner workings of the process between Adelante Consulting and the assessor's office. And I'm trying to pull together a meeting between assessor's office, the Adelante Consulting County Manager Jaramillo and myself, and also the treasurer's office, just to understand the placement of the assessment and if that has any bearing on the treasurer's office. It's unclear as to the demand on the program and therefore the demand on county staff to process those closing documents. This is something I'm trying to find out how many developers are interested in this program that are already located within Taos County. Really, what would the impact be for us? And then we would need to work with other incorporated communities to pass resolutions for developments that take place outside the unincorporated areas of the county. So some unanswered questions at this point, but I at least wanted to provide an introduction for this program, and I'll stand for any questions that I hope I can answer.
Mr. Real.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. I want to say you mentioned agricultural properties as well would be included. I'm trying to figure out how would that, can you give an example?
Let's see, eligible properties.
What that would look like?
Right, so privately owned commercial, agricultural, industrial, or multifamily real property. My understanding is that if there are energy efficiency upgrades that relate to an agricultural business or operation, because not-for-profit properties can be eligible for this. But if they're making water upgrades or any kind of efficiency or resiliency upgrades, then that financing could be used for that.
Thank you.
So the legislation was passed last year, and only Bernalillo County had put an ordinance in place at this point, so Taos could be the second. And so my question is, we know that the request came from the Willa Hotel. Is there any others that you think might also be interested?
Commissioner Romero, thank you for the question. I have not received direct information about other developments that are as far down the road as the Casetta Group and Hotel Willa. My understanding is that the Casetta Group is trying to understand their capital stack with all of their properties and trying to access different kinds of financing. And so they are farther along and have been in conversations about an application with Adelante Consulting. But again, we don't have our ordinance, so we're kind of trying to understand what it would mean for the county before we jump in.
So the involvement of the county would be to put an ordinance in place, and it seems like in county involvement will be minimal. Other than that,
that's the impact that I also don't know quite yet, is what the administrative burden is going to be and then what that fee looks like. And I know that Bernalillo County is charging a fee for staff time involved with this, but I don't yet know what that is. Apologies.
Any other questions, Commissioner Brush?
Yes, Chair Romero, thank you. And thank you, Jessica. I've heard a bit about this program over the last little bit, and anything about sustainability and resilience as we get prepared for our, to survive our future, I love. But a couple of questions. Can our own properties be part of this program? Like, we're going to be renovating the former BLM building that will become the sheriff's office, and it'd be great to do that in the most sustainable, energy efficient way possible. Or would we be eligible?
That is, Commissioner Brush, that's a great question that I can look into. I think if we were looking for financing from a private capital provider, there are only a handful of capital providers that do this program across the country. So I think that would be dependent on what kind of financing we were looking into. County Manager.
Chair Romero, Commissioner Brush, I don't think we would be eligible. Maybe the former assessor or the county attorney could help me with this, because we have our property tax is, we're not assessed.
It's tax exempt.
We're tax exempt, so there's no thing for us, for them to take a loan out on.
Right. That makes sense. And the C in the program's name is commercial, and we're not commercial. So that's probably answering my question, but so thank you. My other point is really just a comment. It makes sense that Bernalillo County is charging a fee for staff time. My question about the administrative needs, which we might not know, is like, do we even have the staff time to give? Like I mentioned in one of our earlier topics, that I've been thinking just so much about capacity. It's always an issue. And the last thing I want to do is burn each other out because everyone's doing 2 or 3 jobs. And there's already so much great stuff going on at the county. If this is essentially someone here in this building running a loan program, I think that's, for me personally, that would be a big question mark.
Chair Romero, Commissioner Brush, thank you for that. I appreciate your concern about staff capacity. I do know that it would not be us running a loan program. All of the vetting and the applications go through Adelante Consulting. I don't quite understand the burden of moving those closing documents through. It may be as simple, quote unquote, as getting signatures, but how many signatures and what folks have to do for that, those are the questions that we're still needing to get answered.
Thank you. And man, getting signatures is the hardest simple thing to do.
Thank you.
Any further questions on this?
I would just ask, Chair, Jessica, have you reached out to Bernalillo County to see, kind of the pros and cons and what they've experienced?
Yeah, Chair Romero, Commissioner Vigil, thank you. I have had a conversation very early on, maybe a few months ago, with Bernalillo County before this was more of a reality for us. But I think since we're kind of getting closer and into the weeds, I'll have a conversation with Marcos specifically about how they're managing this and what that fee is looking like, and so far what the impact has been with the demand. I just wasn't able to get that call before this presentation.
So at this point, you say we're in the information gathering stage. You're still there. Or what would be the next step?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Romero. I'm hoping to have a call this coming Friday with Adelante Consulting, and I think by the next commission meeting would have more information to provide about some of these questions that we have that are unanswered.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And we move on the agenda to item 10, contracts, agreements, MOUs, and bids. A is discussion, consideration, decision regarding the approval of a contract TCC 2024-33, a contract with Architectural Research Consultants Incorporated, RFP Award 2024. A43, contractor will assist the reversions to the current land use regulations and subdivision regulations. Mr. Rudy Perea.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. What you have in your packet is you have a copy of the proposed contract with this architectural firm, and you also have a copy of the proposed work plan that they want to implement if they do get this contract. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I stand for any questions you might have on the contract or on the scope of work that they are proposing to assist the planning department with.
Questions from Mr. Perea? If not, do we have a motion?
I do have a question. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
Chair, and hi, Rudy. Thank you for
Hello.
being here.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The 150,000, was that off of a grant? Just, I'm trying to figure out. No, that's,
The general fund is paying for that.
okay.
So we had put aside money. We ran a request for proposal process, but we had set aside money in last fiscal year, and which we carried over into this fiscal year for this.
Well, thank you for the planning part of it. Thank you.
So, but Chair Romero, I can continue just a little bit further for the public's benefit that's still here. This is also serves as a notice that we're beginning to go down the process of doing a revision on the land use regulations and the subdivision ordinance. So we will be having further work study sessions with the commission as we start to move forward. So I know a lot of you do hear concerns about our LUR or the subdivision act. So as we have these work study sessions, please bring forward your concerns. So this starts that process, just like Andy said, it was 18 months on the short-term rental. Hopefully we're not 18 months, but a lot quicker than that. But I just wanted to make that point that we are starting this process.
And we need to get the word out there. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve contract TCC 2024-33 as read by our
Okay.
chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Vajil. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Romero. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Behill?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascareñas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
And we'll move then to B, which is discussion, consideration, and decision regarding approval for multi-award of RFP 2024-005 for on-call engineering services for Taos County Public Works Department. Ms. Elsa Vajil.
Good morning, Chairman, Commission. Before is a staff recommendation for RFP 2024-005 for the on-call engineering services. We received 3 responses to our published RFP prior to the deadline of 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Friday, June 28, 2024. The offers who responded were WH Pacific, JR Engineering, and RESPC. Based on the review conducted for this RFP, staff recommended a multi-award for RFP 2024-005 for on-call engineering services for the Taos County Public Works Department to WH Pacific and JR Engineering, subject to negotiations of a mutually agreeable contract respectfully, and I stand for any questions.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion on the floor? We have a motion by Commissioner Romero.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Vajil.
Yeah, motion approved, sir.
Okay, then I will
Motion to
second
approve.
that.
And second by Commissioner Vajil for approval. Any further questions, discussions? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascarenhas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Elsa.
Thank you, Elsa.
And the motion was approved. And we move to item 11, Department Matters. Review and decision of adjustments to 2 spring summer lodgers tax grant awards due to an administrative error. 2 grant applications were reviewed and recommended for lower funding amounts than they should have been. This was due to a glitch in the application printouts, which omitted the same budget line on amount, though each grantee had actually provided all necessary information. Jessica Stern.
Good morning, Chair Romero. Thank you. Well, I'm back. As mentioned, there was a discovery following an inquiry by one of our grantees about their score, that there had actually been an error in the version of their application that was printed and then reviewed by the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board. And the information that they actually submitted, I'm happy to provide a sample of what that looked like. But essentially when the advisory board went through, there's a budget spreadsheet that each applicant has to submit. And then a total amount, it doesn't add up automatically in the current form that we use. So there was a discrepancy when in these 2 grantees, when we added up all of the requested amounts that we saw and then the total that they were requesting. In order to provide due diligence, the advisory board felt they could only review based on what they saw, not the full requested amount. And so with the absence of a whole line, these 2 grants were reviewed and scored and awarded at a lower amount. And so when I went back and looked at these applications, I discovered that it was actually a piece of information that had been entered, but that didn't, for some reason, make the printout. I've been in touch with our application system about this, of why that happened. But because this is an administrative error, clerical error, I feel that we need to make these adjustments. So again, it's also on the same line. It's like the last line in the budget that didn't show up. So the requested amount, essentially what I'm requesting from Commission is that we award the full amount that they were requesting based on the scores that they were reviewed on. For the American Contract Bridge League District 17, they scored above 90%, which would have awarded them their full funding request of $7,610. For the Taos Jazz Bebop Society, they scored 87%, which according to our guidelines, then they would have received 87% of their requested amount. So the document that you have shows what their corrected figures should have been if the advisory board simply had the correct information.
Okay.
For questions.
I have a question.
Question, Commissioner Hill.
Yes. How was it identified? Because obviously that person wouldn't have known.
Right, so one of the grantees reached out. Anyone is able to contact me about feedback on their grant. And so in that process of talking with them about their score and what that score meant, they said, well, 87% of $15,000 isn't $9,614. And I said, you're right. You were scored on $11,000. And they said, why? Our application has all of the budget lines. And so when I went back in my printed out binder and then I went on to the application that is in the system, I saw that there was a discrepancy and then went back and looked to see what other applications that we had noted where there were discrepancies. And that's when I saw that there was another one that fell into the same category.
Thank you for that. And just to follow up, is there any others? Have you just gone back to look at everything that might have?
Yes, Commissioner Vehil, thank you. I went back to make sure that all of the others were good to go.
Okay. Any other questions for Jessica? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the adjustments to 2 spring summer lodgers tax grant awards as described by our Economic Development Director.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Brush. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Mascarenhas. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascarenhas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Jessica.
I know they'll appreciate it. Thank you.
And we move then to B, discussion and review of NewGen's findings and recommendations regarding possible rate structures used in scenario 1 or scenario 2 to increase solid waste fees and implement a recycle fee under Section 13 of solid waste ordinance. Mr. Jason Silva.
Good morning, Commissioner Romero, Chair Romero, Vice Chair Mascareñas, Commissioner Brush, Commissioner Vigil, and Commissioner Romero. Thank you for allowing me to present today. I stand before you today on something that we've actually, each of you have seen this document back in the month of April, and then we had a work study session in May. So this is just coming for the an approval of the two scenarios that we have that has been established from this rate study. And I just want to, I can either go over this again, or I can, if you guys had an opportunity to review this, because we've already seen this twice. There's scenario one that would be an implementation of this solid rate fee that would be staged over 4 years. And then scenario two would be, it's still staged over 4 years, but in 2-year increments. And that would be at a larger amount. So it's the same amount, but it's just going to be unveiled to the constituent over a 4-year span.
Every 2 years versus every?
Well, yes. So we can go by on page of your packet there. Scenario one is, it's going to be established as year one is this year, so we're not going to have nothing this year. So this is going to be coming up for the year two, and that would be a $24 increase for the remaining up to fiscal year 2028. So from fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 28, we'll have a $24 increase for those additional years to bring this up to speed. On scenario two, we would have in fiscal year 25, we'd have a $50 increase, and then we would bypass 1 year, and in fiscal year 27, we'd have a $50 increase at that point.
And Mr. Chair, if I might, just a question around clarification. On the agenda, it just says discussion and review. Or are we actually also taking decision on this?
Set up because we have to produce a resolution in accordance with Section 13 of the ordinance. So we don't have direction, we have a recommendation which way to go. So at the next commission meeting, we would have a resolution to adopt.
Got it. So that's why it's discussion and review and input to you. Okay.
Yeah, this, as County Manager mentioned, this would just support how the language and the resolution would be unveiled. So, additionally, here I highlighted all of these items that what's the change in the current appendix of what the commission, why I am coming for you before today. There's a couple I attached within this is section 12 of the recycling program, and then section 13 of the solid waste management fees, as well as the last page is the appendix 1, item A through D. And essentially this is where it falls under the purview of the county commission to have these discussions talked about and then be ratified in an open meeting. So through these scenarios, if I may, you know, this is something that will need to happen. You know, essentially Taos County is the lowest solid, our collection rate is the low, like a collection rate, our collection fees are one of the lowest in the state for a community our size. We're one of a large community based on the demographics and the geographical area that we have to collect trash and bring it to one central location, which is the Taos landfill. We have 8 location centers, and essentially it's somewhat, we're losing money at this point to take a truck out there, pick up from the collection center instead of having constituents come all the way into Taos to throw their trash and bring it into our solid waste facility, not solid waste facility, but it'd be the regional landfill. At that point, we're just trying to recover the cost of what it costs to run this department as a whole. And that's kind of like if you would go back to table 5.3 or table 5.5 on the two scenarios, this will kind of tell you what the current over-under values of what we're trying to achieve. Now, on this, each of these components, for us to kind of come up to where we're not trying to make a profit, but we're trying to get a surplus of funding to generate in this study, we're trying to identify a capital expenditure of reserves that's going to support us with new roll-offs, will support us with new trucks, because essentially each of these elements come out of the general fund. And that is always being strained upon. So through this rate study has developed that we were able to generate $175,000 that will always go into a reserve that we can, within ourselves and within our own budget, build off of these capital expenditures to purchase a new truck or anything that is needed for the department without having to rely on the county's general fund, because that's already been utilized for our sheriffs, for our detention center, for our EMS. And we want to make sure that those services and the funding is always representative and dispersed equally for those public safety departments. So I just wanted to point that out. In this area, when it looks like we're losing money, essentially, this is just showing that we have about $175,000 per year that we're going to be placing into a reserve. Based on both of these scenarios, I'll go back to table 5.3 on the $24 per year. It would take us up to year 5 to gain a surplus of $59,000. That's on the $24 on the scenario of the scenario 1. If we would move into table 5.5 on year 4, we would actually on year 4 we would actually be establishing a higher amount based on staggering the years, but a larger amount of a collection rate. So that's if I was being asked today which my proposal would be, it would be the $50 staggered over the 4 years. And that's what I would propose to do. That's what I would like to see, because that would help our department immensely moving forward. So I know I may be giving too much information. I'm trying to feed information to you without being asked, but if I'm jumping around and getting confused, please kind of wrangle me in and I can answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or two.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Jason, can you remind us the last time these fees, the solid waste fees, were increased?
I believe it was in 2008.
2008?
Correct. About 2014.
2014.
The rate increase?
We went from $100 to $120.
Oh, okay.
And what year again? Say that again.
18.
10 years ago.
2014.
2014.
Okay.
That's knowledge to me, because when I started trying to research to see how I got this in 2008, there was because there's some other identifiers in here that are changing up in here, and this is the recertification for a $5,000 disability discount. I was trying to understand where this came into effect, and that was the 2008 ordinance change. For the increase to be established, that was incorporated. Essentially, that's a violation of the anti-donation. So essentially, anybody that filed the paperwork and were utilized and that were identified as a disabled individual essentially had a 75% discount. Right now, we're changing that up, and we're going to just transition that into a 5% discount. No other county or municipality or local government in the state is following the same structure. So through that avenue, that is somewhat of a violation of the anti-donation law. So that's where this is being changed in here. So the items 2, 3, and 5 are some of the additional increases that are coming from this. The bin rentals is something that it's sent out to individuals that would utilize our services. Majority, we don't get a large quantity of individuals asking for bin rentals. We do it every so often, but it's that main element is actually being honored by some of the local individuals within the solid waste management, but other individuals have roll-off bins that they rent those out as the private sector. We're trying not to dive into that, but every now and then we will have somebody that will ask us for a bin rental, and we'll take one out to the facility. So.
My other question, if I might, this is my last question, and this might not really even be a fair question because it's not necessarily under our control, but the situation with the landfill and the problems that have been happening out there with various violations that I know the town of Taos and the landfill boards are working to fix. Do you see that as having any impact on our solid waste operations?
No, not at this time. All the violations that are there are pertinent to just New Mexico Environment Department regulations that, and that's just due to lack of staffing on Town of Taos, the managing agency.
Capacity again, right?
A lot of stuff is just permitting issues, didn't get permitted, filed on time. It's minor technicalities that are hit, but there's still violations at the end of the day.
Okay.
But there's nothing that is affected through this element
Thank you.
of the rate study. And they're working on, I think each of those violations, they're working on them, and they're rectifying the violations, and they'll be compliant with
Yeah,
them probably
that's
the
what it
next
seems
month or
like.
so.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Yes. Mr. Silva, good morning. Now that you're talking about the bins, did you get an email from MPC, Mascareñas Trucking? Yes, I did. Have you responded back to them? We had a verbal discussion, me and Max. And that's what I wanted. Yes. Anybody in this community is able to, Brent actually has here I printed this off from him yesterday, but based on section 14 of the franchise fees and agreement, we foster the element to bring any constituent that's willing to start a new business into the community and work within the ordinance. And at this point, I expressed to him the same situation. He'll be kind of categorized in the same manner as waste management, that once he's defined here, we'll never deny it. It's free enterprise and open. He'll have to fall under item 8, section 14, item 8, and that would be he would fall under the subsection of the commercial haulers, and what this would fall under would be a franchise fee that he would provide back to Taos County. And as it reads here, it says the fee provided under the subsection shall not be less than 4% or more than 8% of the commercial haulers' quarterly gross receipts. And the reason I ask that is because on the paper I got here, it just goes to section 14A, but I didn't get the reference. Yes, and on that one, that's failure on my part. I didn't share that second page with you. I didn't highlight that area due to the fact that this was mainly staged around recycling and the solid waste fees as for the rate study. So he knows it's got to come in? Yes, in discussions with him, because this is a adventure that he's wanting to embark on. And I duly right, at this point, waste management is not servicing that population in the northern part of the state as I wish they would, but their business model is I'm not going to go into the private sector and tell them that they need to service that area, where this is going to be a market that he's going to be able to embark on that can service his constituents in that area. They need to do the thing about the village of West. And I said, what, talk to Brett, because he's with the county, he's also the village. So yes. I threw it at Brett back. Yeah, no. Yeah, we've had a discussion on it though. And I can follow up if this is something, I would say it's been about a month ago that we've had this discussion. Yes.
So, Chair, if I may,
Mr. Vail.
a couple of questions and concerns. Certainly, you mentioned something about disability. This is not common in other areas where they give any
This is isolated to Taos County. This is isolated to Taos County, and majority of the disability, what I've seen in other not rate studies, but other local governments that have their established fees that I've been able to research over this time, each of them are pretty much a veteran's discount. So we can establish that a veteran discount, but not a disabled discount. So there is a component that we want to support our local constituents, but not at a rate of 75% discount. Essentially, each individual at this point that's disabled is only paying $30, and we have about 1,000 individuals in there that it's just a loss of revenue. And I'm not trying to place this that it's about helping the community, but we still have to cover our hard costs to fulfill these, especially if we wanted to embark on the realm of recycling. That's a whole different element that is part of this rate structure as well.
So I'd like to continue by, we just came off of hearing someone say, I can barely pay my rent.
Yes.
And now we're going to ask them to pay more into solid waste. And I get what you're saying. I know we have to balance it. We have to figure that out. But I can't help but think about, there's going to be individuals out there. And I have, people have stopped me at the post office to ask me, about this and their concerns. Have shared their concerns. And the reality is there are some people that do live on a fixed income. And I'm not sure how we're going to manage that, or if we can even manage that. But it is reality. And then it takes me back to, it's just a concern I wanted to share. The other part is that, and I think we have a mechanism in place, but I'd like for you to speak of that. There's about 51% of folks that we're unable to collect from because they refuse to pay, but we have a mechanism in place. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's actually, we have a collection rate of 57%. So even when I was tasked to bring this up to speed and bring this up to compliance to fill holes in a drain that we have in this department, I had a feeling that we may have a reduction of compliance because individuals, like you said, why should I pay for another increase in taxes? The individuals that I heard this morning, one of them I can speak to is the renters. Normally that cost is covered by the property owner that receives the bill. That's her that rents out the property. So he's going to encompass that cost. So it wouldn't be a burden on that individual. Same thing like, majority of the rentals are in that the individual that pays the property taxes is responsible for this tax base because it falls in that same stature or structure of how these bills are being dispersed out an annual year. But to answer your question, the 57% that's in there, at this point, they go into lien status. And so I will forward everybody, because I only give you a snapshot of what the current ordinance reads. But in that ordinance, actually identifies the lien process, and anybody that is non-compliant with not paying their property taxes will fall into that lien, and then they will start receiving, there's no penalties to it, it's just their accumulation of years of what they haven't paid to date. Essentially through that process, so that if they need a building permit, they need a business license, anytime that they conduct business within town, they have to be compliant for them to be released from the planning department, any mechanism that they're needing additional services. We're not going after and putting lien on the property or the sale of the property, but that's at that point is where they come back and come solve it to their bill.
Okay, so thank you for saying that. A couple of things here. So you did explain in that particular situation that the lady spoke about renting. I get that mechanism's already in place. But there's a lot of people that own their homes that live on fixed income. So I just want to point that out. The other thought was, and I think I just lost it, but the liens that you're referring to, not too long ago, someone came to me and this is what happened to them. Their parent decided they were not going to pay on those fees. They didn't believe that they should pay. So they inherited the property, and all of a sudden they're now moving forward to try to do something, and they just all of a sudden got hit with all the fees that had accumulated. So I think people need to be made aware that if they are neglecting, if they don't believe in paying, it's going to hit at some point. It's going to hit a family member. It's going to hit when they're trying to sell it. There's different scenarios, but that's what people are being faced out there with. And I think it's just upon us to at least bring some awareness to what happens when we place a lien and it, accumulates for years. At some point, someone's going to pay for it.
Yes, correct. And I guess at some point, we can probably do some outreach and maybe educate the community in that structure but at this point, I understand where you're coming from.
Yes, right. And then I also have another concern because above adding an additional fee, now we're asking for a $30 fee for recycling.
Yes.
Okay, and so, we have to remember that that's an additional cost. Once again, I'm thinking of the person that's on a fixed income.
No, and I totally.
Because I can pay it, obviously, and,
exactly.
But there's folks that cannot pay it.
And essentially, this rate study should be facilitated every 5 years because the CPI changes, the Consumer Price Index, and inflation changes that it identifies, rate of price of pre-fuel, a roll-off truck. 3 years ago, this roll-off truck was $80,000. Right now, this truck's about $220,000. So the price of the inflation over the years has changed this. But the real inception why this started moving in this direction was something that your constituent base, that when I first got into this position, had come to you that you wanted recycling. So that's how this really generated.
Right,
so
right.
At this point, when we've had those discussions, we need recycling. County needs recycling. That's where this generated. There's not a good mechanism to support recycling. At the end of the day, we'll have counter arguments across the board that every person, why do I have to pay for $30 for recycling fee when I don't recycle? It's the same mechanism of why do I got to pay for taxes to educate our students?
Right,
It's
right.
part of our duty within our to provide essential components to make the day flow and to provide a better environment in recycling. I see the benefit of it. I do see the benefit within the recycling format that it helps us in the long run because anywhere between 1.7 and 2.3 million is a cost of opening up a cell, putting liners in there, for when the decomposition of all the trash, the monitoring of the trash, the methane gases that come from there.
Right.
So the landfill covers that cost. By recycling, you're eliminating maybe up to 20 to 30%. Some people even say 40%, which creates a longevity of the life of a cell of the landfill. So at any component, there's still a benefit to recycling. But yeah, unfortunately, at this point, I'm still trying to ponder the thought of a 75-year-old individual that is working on a fixed income from Social Security, and he's already learned from his father and grandfathers of living through the depression of how to reuse everything. He may bag one bag of trash per week, or up to 2 weeks because he might be by himself or she might be by himself. And then we're forcing him to take on a $30 recycling fee.
That's my concern.
I have issues with that. So I'm almost at this point, I'm trying to figure out ways to identify Section 3 of this. Do we leave the recycling fee out of here? And then with the generated taxes that we are increasing for just the solid waste, we can probably keep this department afloat. Or do we drop it down to, we have it every 5 years and do it over a 4-year increment again, and stage this instead of just a $30 increase in 1 year? That is those elements that I'm trying to understand the constituent base that are on a fixed income. I'll stop at this point because I could go on about the second homeowners and the real estate tax that we need to go to, electric tax, the third home that's here. Can we force it all on them? I would love to, but it's not state statute and we don't have the autonomy to move forward in that.
Yeah.
But, and it hurts that. But essentially the individuals that have reached out to the commission and to the town about recycling, we know we need to embark on this and we need to be creative of how we're going to support this, but we still need to make sure that we're becoming solvent within this department. We're not losing money. And so there is a need that we need to kind of pay for this because recycling, it may sound like the fees and rates aren't going to supplement what they're currently paying. We're going to have to invest in it to recycle.
So yeah, $30 is not going to.
Yeah, that's going to build a department based on the need of the department at this point.
Got it. Thank you.
So, any other questions?
If not, we will be revisiting this one.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, that was the question. It'd be scenario 1 or scenario 2.
Oh, goodness.
I still need to get a ratified vote today so I can move forward with the resolution.
Some direction, maybe?
Directions.
And Mr. Chair, if I might, if the goal is to be solvent and to run a department responsibly and not continuing to tap into the general fund, it does seem like scenario 2 gets us there a little bit quicker. I mean, the cost to our constituents, our consumers, is the same, just staggered, as you were saying. So is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it allows us Chair, if I may, allows us a little bit of time to bring some awareness and maybe some, just awareness, educational pieces as to why we're doing what we're doing. I don't know. I just think we need to bring awareness. And the other part is the recycling. Could we keep that separate? Once again, the $30 is not going to solve our problems on recycling.
We were going to keep it separate. We want to account for it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm still trying to structure this one based on the findings through NewGen that conducted this rate analysis. On that one there, that's something that's a whole different animal that we're attacking on the side. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out what would be a best way to utilize this because I still have to factor in based on recycling data that I received from the town back in the day, there was about 9% of constituents back in 2020 were recycling, or 2019. 6% came from the county and 3% came from the town is what the data. I don't know how accurate this data is. In either case, through this process of this, our community has changed in those years that maybe we may have an increase of 50% individuals are recycling.
I have one last question.
Okay.
So just out of curiosity, I'm wondering what you think if everyone paid, that fee, would these numbers be different? Less?
On the recycling?
Not on the recycling.
Solid rate? No. No, that's still a whole different element of how just trash is. They're two separate parallels. The $30 fee for 14,000 county taxpayers that own properties within our county, the dwellings that generate tax, that is only focused. The $30 would only identify a revenue for about $450,000, and that's going to cover director of recycling and 3 recyclers.
Let me
that's going to
clarify.
conduct daily operations.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sorry. Let me clarify. I wasn't talking about the recycling.
Full collection based on
Thank
current fees, would you be solvent?
Well, based on the rate study that we're at now with the numbers that are being identified, that's actually 100% collection rate. So everything even on year 5 of scenario 2 or year 4 that we would be generating over under current rates is about 150,000.
There it is. Yeah, thank you.
No.
I got it.
And if I might, those numbers, the percentages of who recycles in the county, and I would be really careful repeating those because I remember the first time I heard them and they weren't really based on a whole lot other than I think maybe like a week of observation at the former recycling center. So I would be really careful about repeating those numbers.
Yes.
They don't, just let's be careful.
And I'm only utilizing that because since we're embarking on a department the county's never run, I'm only based off of data that has been sent out there from another local government.
And I'm just saying, like, it might not be data we want to base anything off of. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Have we looked any further into including the solid waste assessment on the property tax assessment?
That has to be changed within the state. So, that was an idea that I had that would encompass this, that would be essentially evaluated through property taxes. But at this point, that's just in my mind madness that I thought that would encompass this and it would be hidden, that we don't have to collect these and we'd have a 100% collection rate. But at this point, when I've kind of asked into that, it's I can't say it's unconstitutional, but it's not something that has been a discussion at Santa Fe at one of the legislative sessions. That would have to be a change at that point.
I thought the person that presented, that represented New Gen, said that there are other counties in New Mexico that do it.
No, there's in other states. This has happened in other states,
but not in New Mexico.
But not in the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
Have your answer?
Answer. Thank you, guys. Long-winded.
It's like herding cats here.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay. And we move to number 12, consent agenda. We have a couple items on this one.
Yeah.
Mr. Trujillo.
Mr. Chairman, this is kind of out of the ordinary, but I just wanted to point out that with regard to item 12B, which are the draft decisions with regarding to the TREB application that you considered last time, Commissioner Hill pointed out that one of the findings for denial was left out of at least some of your packets. I know that Rudy handed them out ahead of time. There are two particular decisions that the commission made. One with regard to the PUD, which was omitted from some of your packets, and the other was with regard to the subdivision. I want to correct that error. You have those before you now. What those are, what you have is basically, not basically, it's what you all decided, but it's in writing with regard to each application. So I just wanted to point that out. And if you have any questions on that, hopefully you don't because it's on consent. But I'll.
Okay, I see. Here it is.
Yeah. So if you do have questions, it needs to be discussed and probably need to take it off consent. I just wanted to point out that ministerial error in not including it.
Okay, let me just take a quick here. Okay. Thank you. So I'm good with it. So shall we proceed?
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented, items A and B.
Okay.
Second.
You have a motion by Commissioner Brush, second by Commissioner Vehil. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil?
Yes.
Commissioner Brush?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mascarenhas?
Yes.
Chair Romero?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. We move to the 13 County Managers Report and matters. A, update on various items affecting Taos County. Mr. Huckman.
Thank you, Chairman Romero, members of the commission. I will be brief. For our Economic Development Department, the second part of the largest grant program is now open. The deadline is September 15th. So if you know of any programs that can take advantage of the lodger's tax grant, please encourage them to apply. They'll apply online. They can find more information at our website as well. Under emergency management, senior management and key staff members will be attending an incident command systems training on September 11th, and 12th will be out of the office for that day, actually just the 11th. I've heard from most of you. We have the finance budget conference. The registration is now open. So we have at least 3 commissioners attending that budget conference. On the fire and rescue department, we did receive a grant in the amount of $780,500. And this is something Chief Cordova put in for. What Chief Cordova would like to do is add 4 new positions to the salary schedule with this grant. We will have a presentation and also the budget implications for accepting this grant, and it will also be accepting of the grant award. And so we'll have those costs to you. We also want to ensure there's adequate funding sources for year 2 and year 3 of the grant, which will probably need to come from the gross receipts tax. So for the first year, the state will pay 100% up to $450,000 for the first year, $50,000 for up to $225,000 for the second year, and for the third year, they'll pay 25% or $112,500. So, and then by year 4, we have to fully have them within our salary schedule. And this will be a disbursement that will be given directly to the county. So Chief Cordova will be making a presentation at the next meeting regarding how we'd like to use this grant funding. In your emails, I did send you the registration for the New Mexico Wildland Urban Fire Summit, which will be held October 8th through the 10th. This will be at the Sagebrush Convention Center. Chair Romero will be delivering the welcoming remarks. J.R. Logan will be making a presentation regarding the work that's being done here in Taos County. And then we're going to have to find new dates for the joint retreat with the town of Taos. As most of you are aware, Mayor Maesta's grandfather has passed away, and he'll be laid to rest on the 13th, I believe. So we need to find new dates for that.
What was the date on that conference at the Sagebrush?
The 8th through the 10th.
8th through 10th.
And so some possible dates for the retreat with the town are the 19th and 20th. I've also put out to the governor's office for the 20th or the 27th of September to do the dedication ceremony. This time they're going to have me work directly with a scheduler and seeing about getting this done. And then the other thing that I want to point out is at the request of Clerk Montoya, she'd like to remind us that beginning on October 7th, this is a voter convenience center. And there's going to be, because of the presidential election, there's going to be a lot more folks that are going to be in the room, poll watchers from probably both parties. So we'll have our first meeting in October as is. And for the October 15th meeting, we do want to limit the topics. And so I'm asking for no presentations to be done, probably be just staff reports or internal stuff that we need to do. So please keep that in mind, that we're not going to ask or have any presentations in the second meeting of October. Did I miss anything? With that, I stand for any questions.
Questions? Okay, I have one on the hospital renovations and addition. I understand that the staff has had some discussions with the hospital management. Is there an update on?
Yes, thank you, Chair Romero. Chair Romero asked that I bring that up, and I forgot. And Commissioner Vihil asked that I bring something up, and I forgot as well. Now I have Commissioner Vihil's thing. The hospital has hired a project management firm to help with the design and construction of the new building. They have hired a Beta Engineering and Doug Patterson of Living Design Group to work with the project management firm to design the building. And so what we're working on is a preliminary design and a presentation that we would like to present to both the commission and to the hospital board. As these will be just conceptual drawings of what they're proposing and the location. We are going to meet with the hospital this week. There needs to be a land transfer between the hospital and the county. So they're going to transfer a piece of land to the county, and then we'll construct the building on there. The hospital is directly paying the project management firm. And we're also going to do a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the hospital that outlines that, for example, the plans do belong to Taos County. So when appropriate, our chief procurement officer will then issue the invitation to bid, because those are county funds, the 15 million. So we will have to put out the bid. The hospital's aware of this. And so that's thus the need for the MOU to codify that in writing, that the plans belong to us, and then we'll put those out to bid when appropriate. So if everything goes well, by the end of September, we should have that joint meeting with the hospital board. Is there any questions on what I just explained?
I would just, Chair, if I may, I know it's a tight timeline, right? And so, am I correct?
It's a tight timeline, but they've already been negotiations with the state to provide an extension once we get the notice of obligations. And so once we have the design complete, our grants administrator would then submit to the state of New Mexico a notice of obligation to fund. So once we have the design ready and we're getting close to bidding it out, that will secure the money, and that will also ensure that we get an extension on the funding.
Great, that's great, thank you.
Oh.
Okay.
Did you want to ask a question on the Attorney General?
Yes, the Attorney General, are you going to
So
talk about that?
So as Commissioner Vahil distributed over the weekend, and I have since distributed out to Manager Martinez at the town of Taos. In your emails, if you haven't seen it already, is the Attorney General letter regarding the Rancho's traditional historic communities. So please, if you get a chance, review that, take a look at it.
Okay, I would just add, if I may, Chair, I wanted to just give a big shout out to our Senator Gonzalez, Roberto Gonzalez, as well as our Representative Cristina Ortiz and Susan Herrera. They led the ask, which we all know is a requirement. And I know we all thought this would take a little bit more time, but as you can see, it came out fairly quickly and in favor of the traditional historic community annexation. So, you all have seen it. I would just point out that I really love the way they did the way they wrote it up. It was very simple, straightforward, to the point. And so, conclusion, clearly it points out that properties cannot be annexed in the manner that this last one was being attempted. And so I would just say that I think now we've got some direction going forward. Very pleased. I know the traditional historic community, the Las Comunidades, is very excited. And so I'm just very grateful for these individuals, the senator and representatives. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Okay, any further questions?
I do.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm full of questions today. So, I've been receiving calls over a period of time, but most recently, once again, we've got, we're losing folks in our community, and traditionally, our Ag Center has been used as a place in which they can feed people. And we all know that the Ag Center is primarily for ag endeavors, but secondary use has always been for, allowing the community to use the space. The reason why I'm asking or bringing it back up is because I've heard it so many times that I think it needs a future conversation. And I know people are struggling out in the community trying to figure out where to host, after a funeral. And we've always charged fees. It's always, I don't understand why we stopped, but it's really concerning to me because once again, a lot of folks can't go to Sagebrush and pay to have these, to host these folks. Not only that, but it's very common that we come together and bring food. And so you can't do that at Sagebrush and larger facilities. So I want to have that conversation. I also think that we need to talk about the needs at the Ag Center. Certainly, Will has alluded to the fact that we need to, bring the advisory group together. We did vote to do that, and we just haven't moved on it. So I want to bring that up because every time I turn around, I'm hearing that facility, isn't used fully in the manner that it could or should. So commissioners, I don't know how you all feel, but it's concerning. So Brent, would you be able to shed a little bit of light why we're not able to accommodate folks during funerals?
Because as you may recall, this prior to the 3 newer commissioners coming on board, we were told that building should only be used for ag-related activities, and anything other than that wasn't acceptable. We pushed back, and they asked that we honor that, and that's where it has stayed. So we've used it for ag or water-related activities and over the course of the last few years.
Because we do feed the community. We use that center to feed the folks during Thanksgiving. So it's, I don't recall if it was an actual vote, but maybe Anissa can shed some light.
No, we were asked to honor it. We, as you know, there, on one of the parcels, not on the ag building, there is a covenant. There's another word for it, but similar to a covenant, that where the arena is, it can only be used clearly in the transfer of the deed for ag activities. We researched that, and it's just on the arena building that you can't have other type of activities. And then too, in that time frame, there was talk that some groups were allowed to use, some groups were used to use it for certain folks, and we were trying to keep it, that it be a little more fair process. We've tried to keep it for community events. After COVID, when the church wanted to come back and do the Thanksgiving meal as an example, and the bazaar, I personally outreached to the family that donated the land to us to see if there would be any pushback from the family regarding those two.
But isn't this a county-owned building? It's a public building. We own it. Why would we? Because once again, I'm sorry, Chair, you just clarified that the part that has that language stipulation is on the arena. This is the actual center. Am I wrong?
It's just on that. It's not on the center. It's just on the arena building. So we got that clarified. And just, that was the direction the commission had wanted staff to take with it. And we've have since honored and have went with that.
It looks like we've honored it, but not in its entirety, because we're doing it for certain things, which I would say don't stop, please. We do feed folks out of there.
Like I said, we've went to the family that donated it and asked for permission on that. I don't remember if I went and asked, or I thought maybe you guys did, as the Rancho's Traditional Historic Community asked for the matanza, if that was you guys or that was me that went and asked.
I didn't think we would, Chair, if I may say, I don't think we would need to ask them. Once again, it's not their building anymore. And second, it is agricultural, it's traditional. I think it falls under that as well, if we were going to look at it in that way. But anyways, just want to start the conversation because the struggle is real out there. Folks trying to figure out where to host these, folks, and community centers aren't large enough sometimes. And so it just breaks my heart that we're saying no.
But it's also the same argument too, that the community centers are buildings too, so.
I didn't hear that.
So it's also the same argument, like you're saying, that the ag centers are building, the community centers are building too. And,
right. And
a lot of times we defer what we're doing because of certain groups that are managing the buildings or attempting to manage the buildings. So,
yeah.
So back in the past, as you remember, we were trying to level that playing field, that even though fee structures commission in the past had wanted it to be a level playing field between the ag center and the community centers, and we're still trying to work that out. we've probably taken a little bit of a different approach now with the community centers.
So I'd like to bring it back for the commission to discuss and vote on how we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any more questions for Manager Jaramillo? Okay, if not, we'll move to the Commissioner reports and matters. A, new business to be considered future commission meetings.
Already went into it. So I'm done.
Okay, Commissioner.
I think we covered that.
Commission announcements. Just one question. Are we still doing the walk through at the plaza today?
Mr. Patterson wasn't available, so that's why I didn't get the rest of the commission.
So we're not,
No.
okay,
So that's why I didn't bring it up. Nobody else.
okay. Okay, all right, we're ready for adjournment.
I want to thank your corpsman that went up to assist us up in the Cuesta Costilla Namare area with the graders. We got flooded. There was no way one grader would do it, so they sent two other guys, and they did a damn good job. The people were happy. They didn't think, I guess they had never done it before, where they sent all the graders up there, and all the guys are up there. Came out nice.
Well, that goes back to trying to work as a team, right?
Yeah.
One county, one team.
Right.
And when one part of the county is hurting, everybody should jump on it.
And I did bring it up to Brett, and he addressed that immediately. He said, no, they'll start with this, and I want to thank you for that, Brett. Another, are we going to be adding roads to our inventory?
We currently don't have any petitions before us. There's a subdivision there is a subdivision in Upper Red that we need a final determination from if it's a county road. We've provided information to Mr. Trujillo, and so that's the only thing new that may be coming on that I know of, but right now there's no petitions that Public Works has.
Because they did show up and asked about that one road of the bridge. I said, we're taking care of that. And the county had opened up a list of, to put roads into the inventory. I hadn't heard it.
No, the only thing we're working on is clarification on that subdivision road.
Okay, any other announcements? Not, is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Vehil. Second. Second by Commissioner Mascarenhas for adjournment. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.